Welcome to the regular meeting of the Cape Coral City Council. Today is May 15th, 2024. This meeting now comes to order. At this time, I'd like to lead everyone into a Memorial Day tribute. As Mayor of Cape Coral, it is both an honor and a solemn duty to pay homage to our fallen loved ones and to commemorate Memorial Day. On this sacred occasion, we come together as a community to honor and pay tribute to the brave men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the singing of the national anthem led by Emily Feitfaller of Oasis High School.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Emily, for singing the national anthem. Memorial Day will be on May 27th of this year, and it's time to reflect on the profound debt and gratitude we owe to those who gave their lives in defense of our freedoms and way of life. As we gather with family and friends over the long weekend, let us never forget the tremendous price that has been paid for our liberty. We're going to play a short Memorial Day tribute video. Please to focus your attention on the video screens and remain seated. Please play the video.
This Memorial Day, we celebrate their courage.
Hi, Grandpa.
Hi, Ellie.
Come on.
Mommy, I drew you a picture. Here's you. Here's Daddy. Seaver stays happy because I gave him extra treats. Just don't tell Daddy. Just so you know, I love you and I miss you. This is Daddy. This is me. And this is Mommy.
You smile? Maybe. You never smile for Daddy. There we go. She's gorgeous.
Look at Daddy.
Hey. What? Oh, there we go.
As we all know, Memorial Day only comes once a year.
It is, in a way, an odd thing to honor those who died in defense of our country, in defense of us, in wars far away. The imagination plays a trick. We see these soldiers in our mind as old and wise. We see them as something like the founding fathers, grave and gray-haired. But most of them were boys when they died, and they gave up two lives, the one they were living and the one they would have lived. When they died, they gave up their chance to be husbands and fathers and grandfathers. They gave up their chance to be revered old men. They gave up everything for our country, for us. We owe them a debt we can never repay. All we can do is remember them, what they did, and why they had to be brave for us.
As we know, Memorial Day only comes once a year, but these families each and every day have to live with that loss for our soldiers who gave the ultimate sacrifice. So I ask we have a moment of silence and ask you and our community to pray for those families, to give them the strength that they need to get through each and every day to experience the loss that they have lost. Thank you. On behalf of the City Council and the entire community of Cape Coral, I extend my deepest gratitude to our nation's fallen heroes. Their legacy will forever inspire us to cherish and uphold the precious gift of freedom. As we all know, freedom is not free. Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Mayor Gunter,
Here.
Councilmembers Carr,
Here.
Cosden,
Here.
Hayden,
Here.
Long, Shepherd,
Here.
Steinke.
Here.
And as a reminder, Councilmember Welsh had asked to be excused at our May 8th regular meeting, and I'll mark him so. 7 present, 1 excused.
Okay, thank you. Item 5 is changes to the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda, or do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Steinke,
Aye.
Carr,
Aye.
Cosden,
Aye.
Gunter,
Aye.
Hayden,
Aye.
Long, Shepherd.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, item 6 is recognitions and achievements. 6A is Community Recognitions Award, City of Cape Coral Youth Council 23-24, and I'll turn it over to our city manager, Mr. Earl Chisholm. I hit it.
Should be up there.
Today, it's my honor to present the Community Recognition Award to the 2023-2024 Cape Coral Youth Council for their outstanding dedication to duty during the 2023-2024 school year. The Cape Coral Youth Council is made up of representatives from schools across Cape Coral. The Youth Council advises the City of Cape Coral Council, making recommendations on relevant topics and advocating for citywide issues on behalf of Cape Coral's younger population. Between May 1st, 2023 and April 30th, 2024, they participated in initiatives such as the Love Locks Project, the 2024 Florida League of Cities Youth Council Legislative Action Days program, a citywide clothing drive, Adopt a Road, Blessings in a Backpack, and the Youth Council Excellence Awards. Additionally, the Florida League of Cities selected the Cape Coral Youth Council as a winner in the 2023 Municipal Youth Council Video Competition. The vision of the Youth Council is to instill traits of leadership, professional development, and political experience to enable our youth to become productive citizens and leaders in the community. These students have served enthusiastically and respectfully as honorable and trustworthy ambassadors for the City of Cape Coral. Thank you to these role models who will help serve our community's common good. Thank you.
Congratulations on your award, and we appreciate your service to our community, and we wish you well in your future endeavors. Move on to item 7 of the agenda is approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion regarding the minutes from the regular meeting of May 1st, 2024?
Motion to approve.
Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8 is citizens' input time. Citizens' input is a maximum of 60 minutes is set on input of citizens on matters concerning city government, 3 minutes per individual. Please remember to state your name for the record and to address council as a collective body and not as an individual. Anyone that wishes to participate in citizens' input will utilize the podium to my left, your right.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Mick Sheldrake, citizen of the city, but also the president of the Guardian Angels for Special Populations. It's my honor today to make a donation to the city. On behalf of the officers, the directors, and the trustees for the Guardian Angels for Special Populations, we purchased a 12-passenger plus 2 wheelchair accessible vehicle to donate to the city for special populations. This vehicle was purchased from our last fundraiser, the last 2 fundraisers, at a cost of $122,000. And we're proud to partner with the city to make sure that our participants at the Frida B. Smith Center have a place to go, have a place to get back and forth, and attend a quality program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jay Higgins. I'm in Northwest Cape, and I'm just here to bring up a couple of items that I don't see many people talking about. And I know we spoke a lot about the Parks Go bond, and I want to remind people that this bond project is $28 million over budget and still remains unfunded at the mark of about $10 million projected dollars. I know only $60 million has been sold into bonds or to be sold, but there's still a deficit. I'd like to see that addressed. Regarding the yacht club, there was, to me, little public input regarding the demolition. It seemed like it was a streamlined decision that was made. The council continues to roll out their plans. No plan to pay for it. No idea what it's going to cost. No estimated time of completion, yet we continue to steamroll on. Water issues in the North Cape continue to be a problem. I've suggested, and many too have suggested, a moratorium on drilling wells or home building in North Cape until the city can establish how many homes Aquifer can actually support. Actually had a man here not too long ago that had paid for a study and provided it to the city. I've asked, and I will ask again, to release that report to the public. Sorry if I'm boring you. Ironically, as part of the North Cape is on water restrictions, we all argue about how we're going to water the medians down here in South Cape. You spent significant time discussing a referendum, the wording on how you want to pay yourselves more money, and after many attempts and a lot of time and a lot of money, you have come up empty again. No referendum is promised. Again, you continue to steal the money of us taxpayers. But I think the most important item that remains undiscussed are the 3 lawsuits that are pending with the city. Rob Hernandez, Michael Thompson, Scott Kempe, all suing the city. You guys continue to have secret meetings about these lawsuits, yet we, public, are not informed what's going on. We want to know what's going on. Please update us on these lawsuits. One other suggestion to shorten the meeting time that you all seem to want that stipend. You work so long and the meetings are so long. Why don't you put a clock on yourselves? You spend hours talking about stuff and get nothing done. You're welcome.
Good evening, Council. Mr. Mayor, my name is Charlie Pease. A few points related to J.C. Park tonight. There's some information going around right now about permits that were pulled on from South Florida Water Management District. I actually have some questions and would like to make a few points about another permit. For the record, it's SDP 24-000025, which is a site development plan, which was submitted by Pannoni on May 8th. At a valuation of $20 million. The question that I have is there a process in place with the city? I believe that staff will probably address this at the end here, but the site design work is at 60%. The perception here is that this is trying to be expedited because we do not have a contract in place yet from the unsolicited bidder, if that comes to the light out of the cone of silence. So the perception at the moment is that this is being expedited so that once that is in place, ground can be broken and we can move forward with an expedited permitting process. So my question is that what's happening, or is there a process in place that's documented? Are there other examples where an architectural services firm has requested permits before a contract was in place with construction services? Because that's very important here so that the city does not look like they are trying to push the J.C. Park project further faster. The second point related to J.C. Park is, what's the rush? There should not be a rush. We have the unsolicited bid. Why not put this out to bid again through the normal procurement process once we have the full architectural design documents? We could get more competition, have better options. I don't believe that just going with the unsolicited bidder. We do not know where it stands right now from the conversations that are happening behind the scenes with city staff, but what is the rush? The third thing related to that is timeline. I believe, and I think many people here believe, that the next council that's seated in November should have a say in what happens to J.C. Park. And the last point related to J.C. Park is, if a contract is put in place, I don't think you all or anyone wants to put the city in a position of having a contract that could potentially be broken by a future council and cost the taxpayers money. So I would ask that we slow this down, we let the next council have a say in what's going to happen with J.C. Park, and I would love some clarification. I'd like some concrete examples of architectural services firms doing work for the city previously and putting forth permits for site development plans before a construction services contract is in place. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Sutter. I live at 504 Southwest 26th Street, District 4. First of all, I want to say thank you for the video we just saw. As many of you know, I did 20 years in the military. I'm a veteran. And I've had to live through those times, and that was the hardest decision I ever had to do, was to send people to war. I also want to acknowledge the fact that this morning I was at the celebration or the event that happened over at the police department. I thought that was very well and professionally turned out, and it was very well done. So thank you for that. The point of order I want to make today is I've gone to 2 of those yacht club discussions, and I've asked twice, where's the American flag at? Where are you going to put the flagpole at? And both times I was told, don't worry about it. The first time I was asked, the answer was, why? We're a Purple Heart City, people, that's why. And so I just ask you to look at that, look into that, and address it with the design so that it gets put in there, because if that's supposed to be the gem of Cape Coral, I think it deserves the respect of having the American flag there with a couple other flags around it. So that's all I ask for today. So, all right, thank you very much. And once again, I appreciate the videos and the ceremony this morning.
Thank you.
I'm a little shorter. Good afternoon. My name is Tara Jenner, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Lee County GOP. And I would like to read to you a resolution that was adopted by the Lee County GOP and unanimously this morning over at Bonita Springs City Council. But I need to beg your indulgence and see if you would give me a little bit more time, because it'll take me about 3.5 minutes to get through it.
You can get within that 3 minutes unless the council wants to do it, and then provide a copy of it to us through email if you like.
Okay, I would like to be able to read the resolve part first then, so that if I don't get through all of the preambles, we can do that. The title of this is Resolution Declaring Hamas a Terrorist Organization, Supporting Israel's Right as a Sovereign Nation to Defend its Borders and Citizens, and Condemning Anti-Semitism. Resolved, the Lee County Republican Party condemns Hamas as a terrorist organization, denounces its act of violence perpetrated against the sovereign state of Israel, the citizens of Israel, and the non-combatants in Gaza used as human shields, and further rebukes Hamas's call for worldwide anti-Semitism, the annihilation of Jews, and the total destruction of the Jewish nation of Israel, and affirms that anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic speech and or actions will be met with staunch condemnation, and that Jews who are facing anti-Semitism will be actively defended and supported. I will endeavor to read as many of the preamble clauses as I can in the time allotted. Whereas Israel is a sovereign nation reestablished in 1948 by international agreement as a refuge and sanctuary for Jewish people after millennia of persecution, and thereby has the authority and responsibility to defend its borders and citizens from hostile attacks no differently than the United States has the right to defend its borders and citizens from invasion. Whereas on October 8, 1997, Hamas was designated a foreign terrorist organization by the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Counterterrorism. Whereas on October 7, 2023, Hamas launched an offensive and unprovoked attack against the nation of Israel, resulting in 1,139 dead from the attacks and 373 military personnel and 766 civilian among those numbers. Whereas these attacks took place in areas of civilian population, including drone and hang glider paratroop assault on a music festival, culminating with the taking of 247 civilians and military personnel hostage, removing them from Israel and dragging them back to Gaza, with hostages still being held by Hamas. Whereas Israel has the right to respond to threats to its existence and the intentional attack made against it, and to actively seek out and recover hostages taken by Hamas held in Gaza. Whereas when there is a misuse of protected symbols and buildings, non-combatant edifices and symbols forfeit their protected status. Attacks on them may be permitted and justifiable so long as the rules of proportionality and precaution are followed, which reasonably includes the elimination of Hamas, which has declared its goal to be the total annihilation of Israel. Whereas Israel has an organization obligation to minimize collateral damage to non-combatants, but still has the right to protect its borders and citizens. Whereas it is acknowledged and tragic that non-combatant residents of Gaza used as human shields by Hamas have lost their lives as a direct result of the initial unprovoked attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023. And whereas anti-Semitism is taking place, can I finish this paragraph at least?
Sure, go ahead.
Is taking place in U.S. institutions of higher learning, businesses, houses of worship, schools, and even government agencies, and by elected government representatives at local, state, and federal levels, as seen by a significant uptick in anti-Semitism, including verbal threats of imminent harm or death, vandalism, and rallies featuring support for terrorism with a focus on organizations that call for the genocide and the annihilation of the Jews. I'm requesting that the board consider this, if not at this meeting, at a future meeting, for adoption as well, and I have copies for all the board members. To whom should I give this?
City Clerk,
Oh,
please.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Joe Kilrain, 20-year resident of the Cape and District 5. 3 points tonight I'd like to make. The first is relative to J.C. Park. For those who were here at the COW, and all of you were, I believe, the mayor stated his personal position as to, before we taken on any major projects, that we should first understand where the money was coming from and have a transparency on what the GO bond funding is, also the yacht club. With respect to that, with the permits being pulled currently for J.C. Park, I too inquire as to where that is going and if there is some plan in place to accelerate that. I very strongly feel that there's a potential we're replacing 5 council members in the next election, and to rush this through and have it overturned would be a very difficult issue again that council would be facing. And I believe that there may be enough people on the new council to be able to overturn the direction we're headed in right now. My second point is I'd like to commend the town meeting on the water last night. Basically, I think that it was well intended. However, most of the people who were coming there wanted to find out what was going on in the Northeast with that difficult water situation. And the only resolution to that is long-term, and that's going to be accelerating the UEP and putting in the recycle plan. Basically, before we get to those 2 issues, we're chasing things, and we're just going to have to be digging deeper wells at more cost, chasing the money up the hill. Basically, you're going to have people spending $20,000 additional funds on a deeper well, and then another $35,000 to connect to the UEP, $55,000 in total, which will keep a lot of residents either from moving here or move some people out of here. The third point I'd like to make is if you look at the temporary sign that's going to be ordinance that's coming up for a hearing, there's a discrepancy in the duration ordinance on Section F. It calls for 90 days before all elections, including a primary. If you can allow to put political signs out 90 days before the primary, we're already past that point. So there's a displacement there in what is intended and what the practice has been within the city for putting up those signs. Thank you. I would like to really reflect upon what the mayor had said, though, about J.C. Park. It's wise to go ahead and make sure we understand where the dollars are before we start letting any major contracts out. That includes the yacht club. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Carl Bowen. I've lived in Cape Coral for 44 years at 3705 Southeast Third Place. I'm the one that initially got the ball rolling on the Florida Wildlife Commission $900,000 grant to buy burrowing owl lots. No taxpayer money, it comes from mitigation money from the owls. Almost 3 years ago, I attended the FWC Commission's meeting in Estero at the Hyatt Coconut Point Regency. It was scary in that the pandemic was at its height. Everyone wore masks and we were all 9 feet apart. I asked the Florida Fish and Game Commissioners to grant the Cape Coral Friends of Wildlife and the Cape Coral Wildlife Trust with the city a state grant to buy burrowing owl lots. The chairman referred me to Melissa Tucker, who was the director of the Habitat Endangered Species Division, and we left the meeting and I met with her for about 20 minutes, and she said, yes, you can have a burrowing owl grant. And it was $900,000 that we received in June of that year. We gave it to the city because FWC wanted the city to administer this money, and Matt Grambo worked on it diligently for more than 2 years. And we got it, and then at the last minute it was pulled because we didn't have a land grant condonation. We are working with the land grant people, and FWC is working with them as well, and we should get it. But the reason I'm here is that one of the stipulations was that we have people that wanted to buy, we had to get people who we would buy the lots from. And it's been 2.5 years that these people have to wait. They're calling us every week to see where that is. They need their money. And I ask you, please, to approve their money as fast as possible and get the land grant as you can, because the land grant takes 2 years to get. It costs $10,000, and it is a lottery. It could take 8 to 10 years to get that land grant.
Thank you.
But we are working.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service, too. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' input, please come forward.
Tom Coy. Good afternoon. I've been attending the council meetings to stop what the council is doing with J.C. Park and the Cape Coral Yacht Club. Leave J.C. Park alone and the Yacht Club alone. No new buildings, no berserk real estate development. In listening to the objections of the pickleball community last week, who were totally against the charging of usage fees, it occurred to me that there is, this is my impression, it's kind of the way I think, it occurred to me that there's a 3-step model that's going on in the way the city council approaches the parks. And so, and in applying to the parks and developing land, so forth. So the first step of this model is to use taxpayer money to build a facility and or develop land for public use. The second step of this model, and it seems to be sort of like consistent, is to charge usage fees. And then the third step of this model, usage fees like parking or court fees, But then the third step of this model is to put in a third-party company to maintain, operate the area, kind of use don't look like that. You're confusing me. To operate it and to make money as a third party. So with the pickleball situation, it seems very clear. You know, build a facility, and then they have to pay court fees, and then there's a third party that is maintaining the facility, and so that's not usually done like with tennis courts at the parks. So, but let's look at the yacht club as an example of this model. First step is to use taxpayer money to demolish and build new facilities such as the community center and parking structure, both of which will charge usage fees in some way. Parking in the parking structure, and it's probably pretty hefty, and so but this is not a self-funded thing. The term use of self-funded means that the park is funding itself. The park is not funding itself. The taxpayer is then secondarily the second step, the third step, funding the park. And I guess that's all the time I have.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' input, please come forward. Seeing none, citizens' input's now closed. Mr. City Manager, maybe address some of the questions, if you would, please, on the permitting process. I know with J.C. Park, I know we have a contract for the engineering, design, and permitting services for that particular park. So maybe if you could enlighten members here today and our community on how that process works.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, and I think I could also address the yacht club flag, the burrowing owl, and the fees that were just discussed, if you would like me to just take care of all of them.
Like always, you're an overachiever.
All right, thank you very much. In regards to the discussion regarding J.C. Park, so back in October, on October 11, 2023, we had a meeting, a COW meeting on how to proceed with the design concept and what would be in, what would be out. We had discussions from the minutes from October 11th. I explained to you all that we would start off with getting a design consultant to begin the design. They would submit to us a 30, 60, 90, and final design. We would get to the end of the design. At that point, we would make a determination on whether or not we would want to bid what was designed. We would have a shovel-ready project to go. And if we wanted to at that point, we could slow down and seek funding from the state or other grants to help build the project. The issue of a P3 sits outside of the design and the architectural fee. So these are two different processes. The issue of a P3 and a contract there is a relationship with an entity who submits that was looking to enter into a partnership with the city to construct and operate a facility. Those P3s could involve designing. However, as you all may recall, on May 3rd of 2023, there was an adoption of an approval to do the design under Resolution 9323. Specifically, that was to approve an agreement with Pannoni and Associates to provide final design services for J.C. Park improvements in the not to exceed amount of $573,565, and to authorize the city manager to execute such agreement. So we have already started down the road of the design. So anyone who's looking to build and operate a facility for us, there's no need for them to incorporate the design into their P3 submittal, because you all had already authorized us to enter into an agreement to begin those design services. It was pulled from consent by Councilmember Steinke. There was a lengthy discussion, and then upon conclusion of that discussion, It passed 8-0. So it was a unanimous vote to move forward with the design contract with Pannoni for J.C. Park. In the design contract, and that was, again, Resolution 9323 for anybody who's looking for those documents. In the design contract for J.C. Park, is specifically in the contract to include numerous activities related to getting that park to a shovel-ready project. It includes surveying, geotechnical engineering, environmental resource surveys, civil engineering, landscape architecture, architectural design, marine investigation, marine design and engineering, and civil engineering. Just about every step of the process we have taken in J.C. Park. We have had residents email us, send us emails, and come to the podium questioning what we are doing. Everything that my administration is doing pursuant to this contract that we were authorized unanimously and given direction to move forward with. So we have had residents upset and concerned about the geotechnical survey. We've had residents and concerned upset about the survey on the ground when the survey showed up, the marine work. And now as part of, when we went to the 30% design, we took that to the community. We've had residents object to that, and now we are at the point of submitting permits. And so I just want to make sure that the community is aware all of this is part of the process of designing the park, and none of it is out of the norm for what we do at any other park. So this same exact process, as explained back in the October COW, is the same process that we followed for all of our Go Bond parks. There was a request for a specific example of when we do permitting before having a contract for construction. I can tell you right now, we have Tropicana Park in permitting with the DEP. We have approved site plan permits for Tropicana Park with the city, and we do not have a construction contract in hand. When we get those permits in hand, we go to bid and we construct it. Same thing exists for Lake Mead Park. We have a site plan permit in hand, an Army Corps permit in hand, a South Florida Water Management permit in hand, but we have no bid on the street to construct Lake Mead Park. So doing permitting as part of the design process is the normal course of process for engineering and architectural services. I can understand if you are not for the project. I can understand if there are things in the project you don't like, but I want to assure the community that what our consultant is doing is not outside of the norm. So I understand the concerns, but nothing is being rushed. It is following the normal course and is pursuant to the contract that was adopted by council, and my staff is administering. As it relates to the Yacht Club flag, I was advised by my parks director that our project manager for Kimley Horn spoke with the resident who came up to speak tonight and did not say, "Why are you asking?" I was advised that he told him, we are not at the point of picking the site for the flag, and likely there will be several options available as we get to further down into design as far as aesthetics and location. In regards to the Burrowing Owl grant, I want to commend Mr. Vo, who came and spoke, and I will say what I said the night that I pulled the item from the agenda. I support the Friends of Wildlife. I support this grant. I support all the efforts related to bringing it to us. My staff member who has been tasked with bringing this forward has been on the phone with the DEP continuously since the day that it was pulled. We have identified an accredited land trust. We have not only identified a primary, but also a secondary. We have notified the state. They are letting us know now what would need to be done to amend the agreement, and we are working through that process with them. We still have been given assurance that this is not going to jeopardize our funding, And as soon as we finalize getting the lands, getting the funds to purchase the lands and put them in an accredited land trust, we will bring that agreement back before you. So again, full support of the program, full support of Carl's efforts and Friends of Wildlife. It's just the execution of this that we are getting right. In regards to the fees at J.C. Park, I know there was some discussion about that, at the committee of the whole. I'm sorry, what did I say? Fees at Lake Kennedy Park, yeah, regarding tennis and pickleball fees. After the meeting was concluded, our Parks Director had sent members of City Council a resolution that was passed that unfortunately, and we apologize for not having this ready at the meeting, but through Resolution 216-21, a previous City Council had already adopted fees for the use of the tennis courts at the yacht club and established tennis membership fees for that facility, which was only a 4-court facility with limited parking. And that resolution specifically says that open play and round robin would be $6 per person when you come. So that's kind of your drop-in rate. A couple's resident fee was $475 per year. Couple non-resident was $600 a year. Single resident was $300 a year. Single non-resident was $400 a year. I believe the reason we didn't hear from the tennis folks that night was because the tennis folks have already been paying between $400 and $600 to utilize the yacht club, and the facility that we built at Lake Kennedy is much bigger and has way more amenities. We are still going to be working through getting the fees, several models run regarding the pickleball side and these fees that were already approved for tennis. And as stated during that COW, I will bring to you all several of those models so that we can figure out where we would like to be with our fees. But there already is a resolution adopted by council setting many fees related to parks and recreation services. And again, that is Resolution 216-21. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for the clarification. I'll now open up, is there any council discussion on citizens' input? Councilmember Carr.
Thank you, and thank you, Mike, for that explanation of several topics. Just for a little more clarification on the J.C. Park permitting, or the application for permits related to where we are in the process. Now, learning this today, I did ask the question about, it seemed that at 60% seemed to be the trigger for these applications to be made. Is that the case in the projects that you mentioned as examples?
In most cases, you submit for permits at 30%.
30%.
So waiting till 60% was done specifically because we had made a promise to the community that we would bring the 30% design to them to see if there was any other thing that was needed to be added that they wanted, to include. I don't know specifically if any other things were added between the 30 and 60, but in most cases, you submit your permits at the 30% design.
What if there were to be changes made after the applications have been made, or after the 60% timeline up to the point of construction contracts? I mean, how do you modify? Is there?
It's a permit amendment. You would if you've already received the permit, then it's a permit amendment. You file for an amendment to that permit. Permit modification is what it's what it's called in the engineering and architectural world. If you're doing it while you're going through design, you just make it part of your submittals as they review it. Most of the reviewing agencies, they get an idea of what you're looking at doing at the 30% design. They know you don't have all of the detailed documents, but they start to position back to you the documents and the analyses that would be required for them to complete their design. And as you're going through the 60 and the 90, they start getting, those more finite details related to the elements that they would have jurisdiction over. So if it's water management district, they're gonna be looking at the 30% design for where are your water management inlet and outfall structures. But at that time, you won't have calculations on the storage capacity and all your impervious surfaces, because those things change through design depending on what's happening. But by the time you get to the end, they have those documents and those submittals. So this is not an uncommon process.
Thank you for that. Just one more question. Is there any expectation that we're going to, it sounded like there's going to be significant more detail at the 60% development stage. Are we going to receive that information? We haven't received it to date. I mean, do we have an updated presentation coming, or?
No, at this point, we're just moving through. There was one more touch point after the 30 with the public, but at this point, administration carries it through to completion.
So, but are the 60% designs available to review, or are they not available?
I believe we have 60%, yeah. Would you like to see them?
Yeah, I don't believe we've been provided that. I know I have the 30%, unless I missed it. I went back and checked today just to see, but I thought we were expecting to see that.
As a matter of practice, staff does not provide continuous updates with every submittal through a process. But if you would like to see that, we can do that.
It just sounded like it was going to be much more detail and specificity with the design itself that I would like to see, and I'm sure others would like to see it as well, in the public at least. And if that is available, I'd like to see it.
Very well.
Thank
Make
you.
it happen.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. Just a couple remarks. For the citizen with the concern around the flag at the yacht club, if you have a suggestion, if you have a few suggestions, like, hey, first, second, third, would like to see it this way, certainly send an email. And we certainly have not gotten to that level of specificity yet, but certainly any recommendations are always welcome. So send that in. Thank you. As it relates to the gentleman talking about the unified model that every park is looked at, I can only speak from my experience, and I can tell you that that's not true. Every park that I've had any type of input or involvement with, each park is taken on its own merits, and depending upon the objective of the park, every park is dealt with differently. So there's no model, and of course I think we could probably go through a litany of the parks where there is no cost to do anything there. There are no user fees. People just go and enjoy the park. So it's certainly not a one size fits all way of going about the either renovation or origination of any of our parks, to my knowledge. And lastly, as it relates to J.C. Park, the cone of silence still exists, so quite frankly, I don't even know what the unsolicited P3 bid looks like. I'm hoping to see that just as much as every one of you in the audience and at home want to see it. To my knowledge, there's no acceleration. Things are going through the same process as they always have. Nothing has come about that has caused an acceleration that I'm aware of. There was a time when additional bids were requested, went through the standard procedure that comes along with any time an unsolicited bid comes in and the cone of silence becomes put in place. And those requests for bids were placed out, publicized, and certainly, on record for use in future decision making. So that's all I had to say, trying to bring some additional information to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 9 is business, and 9A is the consent agenda. I'll now open up the consent agenda for any items to be pulled. I would like to pull item 14, Resolution 161-24. Any other items that would like to be pulled? Councilmember Carr.
That was the one I was going to pull, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda except for item number 14, Resolution 161-24.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Steinke?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Cosden? Aye. Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. I pulled item number 14, which is Resolution 16124. It's in reference to a grant that the city of Cape Coral is receiving. And Mr. City Manager, if you could maybe give us a brief description of that grant, what it's going to be used for, and maybe how we obtain that particular grant.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution 16124 is a grant between the city and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Last year, around this time, our lobbyist, Dane Eagle with Ballard and Associates, made us aware of a first-of-a-kind program that Governor DeSantis set aside money for septic to sewer conversions and water, alternative water sources, and assisted us in getting to the point where we can submit an application. Our utility staff under Director Pearson submitted a grant application. It was a competitive application, and the maximum award for any single entity was $25 million. I'm pleased to let you know that this resolution before you tonight was a competitive award based on the submittal that your staff, my staff, put together. And as a result of this, we are going to be applying this to our North 1 UEP. And this will result in a reduction of the assessment for everybody in the assessment area in the UEP. We are estimating this to be about a $2,400 reduction in the cost of their assessments. So I'm grateful to our staff. I'm grateful to our lobbyists who helped us get this. And we were also notified last week that the notification for funding availability for this year's cycle is also open, and we are preparing another grant and in hopes of getting another $25 million to assist our residents in North 1. So I would like to urge that you approve this, but also recognize our lobbyists and our staff's work to get this for our residents in North 1.
Thank you. I think this is a huge opportunity, for our community. We hear, I know I've heard many times, and I'm sure my colleagues here have, what type of grant opportunities are we applying for? I believe we received a federal grant of $1 million. So to put this in perspective, a state grant of $25 million is substantially more. As you can see, that's about a $2,400 reduction per resident. So I think that's a huge cost savings that we can pass along to our residents. And as the city manager had mentioned, I would like to thank our lobbyist and all of staff that worked diligently to obtain this grant, and being cautiously optimistic that hopefully we may be considered for future grants as well. Councilmember Long.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that. I had my button on. This is really just a testament to the staff and a lot of people that we had working behind the scenes on this. This is a monumental victory for us. I see the media cameras in the back, and I wish they were here to talk about this. I'm almost certain they're not. But this is the story that everyone should be hearing about. It's a tremendous savings to our residents. And really, this is something that I'd love to be able to distribute on a larger scale to let everybody know that you guys, the staff, and our representative, I believe Dane Eagle was involved significantly, that we're constantly working hard for the residents here, and this is the result of that hard work. So thank you all for that.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes, I would just like to repeat what has already been said. I appreciate all the work that staff and city manager has done, as long as council as well, for lobbying our leaders to help us with this. And this is awesome news, and hopefully we'll be able to repeat this in the future. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no, well, we got one more light just popped up. Councilmember Hayden.
Just a clarification there, Councilmember Long. I believe that is exactly why the media is here tonight.
Maybe that was intentional.
So I don't believe that was the case, but
Oh, is that it?
That's it.
Oh, Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention as well, you know, how important it is for us as council members to spend the time with our legislators at the state level and the national level, and during the legislative days for us to make our trip, you know, to Tallahassee to you know, come away from home, so to speak, and go where a lot of these decisions are made, have the relationships there, meet with our lobbyists, and focus on the things that are most important. And so hats off to those council members that take the time away from home to go and meet the people that are making these decisions and make sure that they know who we are when the asks are made. And certainly hats off to Dana Eagle and Ballard Partners for the work that they do day in and day out as they work with the legislators as well. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for Resolution 161-24.
Motion to approve.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Steinke?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin? Aye. Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long? Aye. Shepherd?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, item 9B is appointments to boards and committees. B1 is the voting delegation for Florida League of Cities Board of Directors. I brought this forward like I do each and every year. Each year, we have a deadline by June 1st to submit a recommendation to the Florida League of Cities Board of Directors for the individual that will represent our city. Again, it's a recommendation. The board votes on that particular individual at our upcoming annual conference, which is in July. That's why we have to notify them by June 1st. I've been on that board for several years now and would like to continue on that. I'm not only on the Florida League of Cities Board of Directors, I'm also a member of the executive board as well. Councilmember Steinke.
I'd like to nominate Mayor Gunter to continue there. I've gotten very involved with Florida League of Cities. I've been at the conferences. I've watched the mayor's involvement there, and so I'd like to see the mayor continue to act as our delegate there.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Steinke?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin? Aye. Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long? Aye. Shepherd? Aye. 7 ayes, motion carried.
Item 9C is unfinished business. C1 is follow-up items for council. We don't have anything listed. Council have any follow-up items? Seeing none, we'll move on to 9D, which is new business. D1 is the annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year ending in September 30th, 2023. Mr. Mason, good evening.
Sir, Mayor, council members, Mark Mason, Financial Services Director. The annual comprehensive financial report has been, for fiscal year 2023, has been audited and issued as of 3/31/2024. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Chris Kessler, partner with Clifton Larson and Allen, our external auditors for this audit. Mr. Kessler will share his required communications with the governing board, which is you, for this audit. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I am going to pull up the presentation here. Just give me 2 seconds to find it. There we go. All right. All right, perfect. So as Mr. Mason said, we are talking about the September 30, 2023 audit results for the city's financial statements and compliance audit. So the services that we've performed are no different than prior years. Auditing standards have remained the same from previous years. So really what the audit consists of are really 3 areas. And you have your financial statements. So the city's annual comprehensive financial report, that's your financial statements, also referred to as the ACFR, and that is audited in accordance with government auditing standards as is required. We also audit the federal compliance. So that is the grants that you all are spending federal dollars in the current year. We're looking at the large major programs, looking at the compliance that the city has complied with during the year as far as how those were spent and the various rules that come alongside those, and then state compliance. So that also includes your state grants, which follow the same guidelines as the federal grants for the most part, looking at compliance, spent in the proper areas, rules, regulations followed, as well as Florida statutes around the city's handling of public deposits and investments. So the reports that we deliver, so as a refresher, as a reminder, the city prepares the financial statement. So that is your document. Our reports are the opinions and the letters that go into that document with our letterhead on it. And those consist of these 6 items here. And the short version of that is it's our independent auditor's report, which is our opinion, the report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance, the single audit report for the federal programs and the state programs, the independent auditor's report with compliance on the specific Florida statutes that I talked about earlier, the management letter as required by the Florida Auditor General, and then our governance communication letter, which is the letter summarizing the results of our procedures to you all as governance and really what I'm talking through here today. So the results of our procedures, the auditor's report is an unmodified opinion. That is a clean opinion. That is the highest level of opinion that you can receive. What that means is your financial statements are free of material misstatement. Our independent auditor's report on internal control did have one finding related to the permitting system and the internal controls. That finding was something that had been highlighted in the 2022 audit. It was addressed by the city during 2023, but because it was during the majority of the year, it was a repeat finding just at a lower level. So that's already been resolved, and that will be something that should be cleared going forward. Our single audit report did have unmodified opinion on compliance, both on the federal programs and the state programs. There was one finding related to the coronavirus state and local recovery funds regarding reporting. What we look at with some of the grants are you all are required to report certain status updates, performance updates, things along those lines, and there's due dates. This is related to the report just being filed past that deadline with the federal government. So again, corrective action's been put in place by the management team already, and I wouldn't expect that to continue going forward. The management letter had no reported comments, and our independent accountant's report, which is the compliance with the state's investment statutes, was unmodified opinion as well. So again, clean opinion, no issues there. So just some of the general communications to you all, the scope and the timing of the audit, it did proceed as planned. Significant accounting policies are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, also referred to as GAAP, and they're consistent with industry practices and standards. We had no difficulties in performing the audit. Our significant risks that we identify in our planning were addressed as planned. And then, of course, just a huge thank you to everybody here at the city who played a part in the audit. This is it's a significant undertaking for everybody involved, everybody not just in the finance department, but within the various departments and within the funds that are providing answers for the activity during the year, responding to our requests, sitting down for interviews with the audit team. It is a big process that takes 9 to 10 months during the year. So a huge thank you to everybody that was involved in that to allow us to get the audit done efficiently, effectively, and be here presenting today. A couple takeaways for you all just with 2023, and I'll just hit on these briefly. The city's federal grants and the state projects, the state grants, are continuing going to be a significant area of focus. So when you look at the grants we tested during 2023, it was, of course, some of the FEMA claims in the disaster grants, about $24.2 million were subject to the compliance testing, and then the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, $5.2 million was subject to testing during the year. So that will continue for you all going forward. So as I've said in previous presentations, just the documentation that you all maintain and any decisions that you make continue to be a critical factor for ensuring compliance for the city going forward. And then, of course, there was a significant accounting standard that was implemented during the current year regarding how the city accounts for non-cancelable technology subscriptions. So softwares or any sort of software as a service type products that the city enters into long-term contracts for. Similar to the leases standard that I talked about last year that had to be implemented, those have to go on the financial statements of the city now going forward. And so, from a number standpoint, it doesn't impact things very significantly for you all, but it is a large logistical exercise for your financial team and for your management team in analyzing contracts in the year of implementation and going forward as you all continue to amend, cancel, or enter into new contracts. So just again, the implementation went very well. The city did a great job. It's just a lot of work for the team internally here for you all to go through. So with that said, that's the end of my prepared comments. I do also want to say that this is our last year as serving as the city's auditors. So I just want to say thank you to you all. It's been a pleasure working with you for the last few years. Your new firm, Molden & Jenkins, great firm. You all are in great hands with them. But just again, hope to see you all soon throughout the community. And now I'd pause for questions, comments, or anything else.
Okay. I'll open up for any discussion, but before I do that, I just want to thank you for all your services that you've provided over the years, and thanks for your last report here this year. Any other comments from council? Okay, seeing none, thank you, sir. Appreciate the presentation.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Okay, we will move on to item 9E, personnel actions. Petitions to council is F, and G is follow-up items for city manager. City management, we don't have any personnel actions or petitions to councils. Any follow-up items, Mr. City Manager?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I do want to give an update on the FEMA situation that we have, and I have some information that I want to share with you all. If you remember in the very first FEMA update that I presented, I went through kind of a detailed timeline related to the FEMA situation and all the communication we had and all the work that we had done. And a very important process, a very important piece that I pointed out to this council was that we had submitted a resource request in order to obtain building inspectors and certified floodplain managers to perform substantial damage estimations for a segment of our community that received some damage. And all the way up through recently, that resource request was never responded to. I'm going to remind you all of the reason that we are here is that FEMA did not believe we were compliant, because they said that we sat back and waited for homeowners to submit permits and that we were not proactive out in the community. Throughout this entire process, we have continued to reference them back to FEMA document P-758, which is a FEMA National Flood Insurance Program desk reference. It's basically how communities should work after a flooding event. And specifically in section 7.5, which is damage assessments for substantial damage determinations, the document states, and this is the important part, and I've said this before, but I want to emphasize this again tonight before I run through you some numbers to understand what FEMA has put us through and what they're looking at. It specifically says communities have choices about how to handle making substantial damage determinations when many buildings have been damaged by a significant event. And there were two options. And if you remember, I said we had to fall into number 2 because our resource request for option 1 was never responded to. Option 1 was they can proactively inspect buildings soon after the event and use available information to estimate repair costs and market values. Those data can then be used to develop substantial damage determination in advance of owners submitting applications with more detail. That is what FEMA said we didn't do, and we didn't. What we did do and was compliant is number 2. They can notify owners of the requirement to get permits and then wait for property owners to apply for permits and make substantial damage determinations at that time following their normal permit procedure. And as I stated when I went through this back in April, we've sent out many notifications to owners saying you have to come and get permits and that we have to, follow our floodplain regulations. Now let me tie that through what concluded last Thursday. We submitted 206 packets for properties in our special flood hazard area. In the city of Cape Coral, we have 51,818 structures in our special flood hazard area. Let me repeat that again. 51,818 structures in our special flood hazard area. The 206 that I pulled 50 staff members and worked nearly 7 days a week for 12 hours took us 30 days to get the documents needed for number one. 206 in 30 days represents 0.3% of the 51,000 structures we have in our special flood hazard area. And FEMA wants option one. If we replicated this process continuously, it would be 251 batches of 206 documents every 30 days. That would be 7,546 days, or 20.6 years to complete. Now, I've been here 23 years and have been through 5 activations: Charlie, Wilma, a no-name, Irma, and Ian. And if we had to do option one for every property, again, proactively inspect buildings soon after the event and use available information to estimate repair costs and market values so we can develop substantial damage determinations in advance of owners submitting applications. I've been through 5 activations in 23 years. By the time we finish going through every property in our special flood hazard area, we would have 4 more hurricanes already hit us. So I want to again thank my staff for what we did in the last 30 days, but I needed you all and I need the community to understand what FEMA is thinking that they're going to ask Lee County, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Estero, and Bonita to do. And not just us. I'm afraid for any other city in the state of Florida moving forward. If option one is the only thing that they're going to make available and they're going to get rid of option two, there's not enough resources in the state of Florida to do this. I can say that confidently. It's just not going to happen. So together with FEMA, we need to find a better path forward, because doing 0.3% of our special flood hazard areas is not a representative example of our entire special flood hazard area homes. But again, I want to thank my staff. I want to thank FEMA for getting where we are. We're waiting on them to let us know if the documents on the 206 properties that have been submitted are sufficient for them to reverse the retrograde decision that they've asserted. But again, we went through this entire process to deliver them documents they requested, which fall under one option of 2 that we chose. Thank you for the time, Mayor, to put that before the community and yourself.
Thank you. And again, Mr. City Manager and all the staff, like you said, I know they work tirelessly, for 12 hours a day, almost 7 days a week throughout that process. If I'm not mistaken, almost 5,000 pages of documents. So I know it was a lot of work, a lot of effort. It's unfortunate that we found ourselves in that position. But I think the benefit, we've painted a whole different picture than the picture that they tried to paint in the very beginning. So it was worth the effort. It was expensive, but I think we have a more detailed and more thorough outlook on exactly what was done and what was not done, what was compliant, what was non-compliant. So I just wanted to make sure that we publicly thank staff for all your hard work. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 10, unless any other council members I don't see have any other lights on. So we'll move on to item 10, ordinances and resolutions. 10A is public hearings, quasi-judicial hearings. We have Resolution 130-24. Madam City Clerk, if you would, please read the title.
Resolution 130-24, a resolution providing for the vacation of plat for a portion of the Southwest First Court right-of-way and all underlying easements located adjacent to Lot 1, Block 203, Cape Coral, Unit 3, Part 1, and Lots 34 and 35, Block 205, Cape Coral, Unit 3, Part 1. Providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in Lots 34 through 35, Block 205, Cape Coral, Unit 3, Part 1. Property located at 5982 Southwest First Court and 5973 Southwest First Court, providing an effective date.
Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. In reference to this quasi-judicial hearing, at this point in time, I would ask that if there is any ex parte communications as required pursuant to the city code, that they be disclosed at this point in time regarding this specific resolution 130-24.
Thank you. Any council members have any ex parte communications they'd like to address? Okay, seeing none. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. Anyone wishing to speak or provide testimony must be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Struve.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. For the record, Mike Struve, Planning Team Coordinator with the City Planning Division. This case before you this evening is a privately initiated vacation request. The owner and the applicant is Costamore LLC, and the owner has a letter of support from Coopy LLC, which is the adjoining owner to the south of the Costamore site. The owner requests to vacate over 2,300 square feet of street right-of-way and the majority of easements underlying that right-of-way, as well as over 390 square feet of platted easements on the owner's site. These two properties are located at 5973 and 5982 Southwest First Court. This is an aerial of the two subject properties. The Costamore site is to the south. It's a little hard to tell from this particular perspective, but the single-family home that is shown on this site was significantly damaged during Ian, and that home was demolished and is no longer on the site. This is a zoning map showing the subject properties have R1 zoning, as do all properties along Southwest First Court. There is a large parcel to the west of Southwest First Court, shown here in the green, that is owned by the Zimmel Trust with a preservation future land use classification. Some background on this case: the applicant owns one site that is over 15,000 square feet in area. As I mentioned earlier, this site previously had a single-family home that has been demolished. And according to the owner's letter of intent, the owner plans to build a new single-family home on the site, and he's seeking a vacation to improve the safety and the access for the new home. These next couple of slides will show in a pictorial fashion the right-of-way and easements requested to be vacated. The top of your screen is north. River would be on your right or to the east. And this red box here shows the right-of-way proposed to be vacated, as well as the majority of easements underlying that right-of-way. The red cross-hatched area here shows easements on the Costamore site that the owner is requesting to vacate. And then lastly, the blue crosshatched area shows easements underlying the current right-of-way that the city would be retaining to provide for a continuous perimeter easement around the expanded site should this vacation request be approved. We've analyzed this request consistent with those standards that appear in the Land Development Code. What you see here on the slide is a summary of that analysis. Of a more detailed analysis does appear in our staff report. In short, this vacation request does meet all requirements that staff reviews for recommending approval of a vacation. The right-of-way area itself is 50 feet wide. It's at the end of a dead-end street. This segment of right-of-way provides access only to the Costamore site and to no other property. And for that reason, staff believes that this right-of-way does not serve any foreseeable future purpose. Platted easements that are requested to be vacated are not needed, and the reason for that is because the city would be retaining easements underlying the current right-of-way to provide a continuous perimeter easement around the site. The three utility providers have reviewed this request and they've issued letters of no objection. Staff recommends approval of this vacation request with conditions. The hearing examiner has reviewed this case and she also recommended approval with staff conditions. There were no speakers at public input. We did receive a phone call about a week ago from one nearby property owner that just wanted more information about the case, and that phone caller indicated neither support nor opposition to this request, and I'll stand by in case you have questions.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here tonight for this particular resolution 130-24? Okay, seeing the applicant appears not to be present, I'll now open public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on resolution 134-24, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding resolution 130-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Steinke?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Cosden? Aye. Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to ordinance 37-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 37-24, an ordinance amending Ordinance 15-15, as amended by Ordinance 38-17, that approved a planned development project in the city of Cape Coral, Florida, entitled Stonewater, for certain property described as parcels of land located in Section 10, Township 44, Range 23 East, Cape Coral, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein. Property located at the southwest intersection of Tropicana Parkway West and Nelson Road, approving the modification of a condition requiring that a portion of the site be developed with non-residential or compound uses, providing for findings of fact and conclusions of law, providing for action on requests and conditions of approval, providing for legal effect and limitations of this PDP development order and administrative requirements, providing severability and an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. In reference to ordinance number 37-24, PDP 23-000004, this would be the time where any council member would disclose any ex parte communications that may have occurred, whether it's with the applicant, through any residents, or any city staff.
Thank you. I have had ex parte communications with city staff and the city attorney's office in reference to ordinance 73-24. Councilmember Steinke?
Thank you. I as well, going back to October of last year, met with Joe Mazurkowitz and the development representative, Joshua Gadomski, and more recently had ex parte communications with city staff and members of the city attorney's office.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yeah, I've spoken to Joe Mazurkowitz and Joshua Gadomski, and I also spoke with city staff and the city attorney's office. and I received the emails as well from citizens who were in support and some were opposed.
Councilmember Cosden.
Thank you. Yes, I too met in October last year with Joe Mazurkowitz and Joshua Gadomski, and I also had conversations with the city manager.
Councilmember Hayden.
I also met with Joe Mazurkowicz and Joshua Gadomski and had discussions with city staff and the city attorney's office.
Councilmember Carr.
I had recent discussions with city manager, city attorney, and city staff. I also received a handful of email correspondence not in support of the project or the proposed changes.
Councilmember Long.
Yeah, I just had a discussion with the applicant's representative and their representative, and I conducted a site visit. Thank you.
Okay. I believe that's all the ex parte communication. This is a quasi judicial hearing. Anyone wishing to speak or provide testimony must be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to staff.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Justin Heller, Senior Planner with the Cape Coral Planning Department. All right, this is a PDP amendment, 1020 Tropicana Parkway West, applicant Stonewater 2 LLC, represented by Joe Mazurkowitz. They are amending a condition appearing in ordinance 1515, requiring the site to be developed with non-residential or compound uses. The site's currently undeveloped, totaling about 15.57 acres at the intersection of Tropicana Parkway and Nelson Road North. It has a future land use designation of Commercial Activity Center and a zoning designation of Neighborhood Commercial. The surrounding area consists of Mariner High School to the west and single-family homes and vacant residential lots to the northeast and south. Here's an aerial of the site. It's the north end of the Stonewater development there along Tropicana and Nelson. All right, a little background. The Stonewater PDP contains the condition that future development within the MR zoning district shall not contain freestanding residential uses. All future development shall be non-residential or compound use as determined by the Marketplace Residential District. Subject parcel is included in this development area. The MR district was rezoned to NC by the city in 2019, and this condition now applies to land within the NC zoning designation. Elimination of this condition from a portion of the site would allow up to 8.8 acres of the property to be developed with residential uses in accordance with the current NC zoning. And here we have a sketch of the site. The darker highlighted area is the portion of the site subject to this amendment, primarily the stretch along, the narrow stretch along Tropicana Parkway. Our analysis under 3.4.8D, property that is controlled by existing PDP consists of more than one parcel or tract of land. This PDP contains multiple parcels or tracts of land, so this criteria is met. The party or parties making application for the amendment of the existing PDP holds title to ownership of 100% of the property that would be included in the proposed amendment. And the applicant owns 100% of the property subject to this PDP amendment, so this criteria is met. Proposed amendment would not negatively affect the lawful existence of the existing PDP as it relates to the property that is controlled by the PDP development plan, and that would not be included in the proposed amendment. Staff finds the requested amendment will not cause the existing development plan to become legally non-conforming in any way. This amendment would not have a negative effect on the lawful existence of the Stonewater PDP, so this criteria was met. As far as our comprehensive plan analysis, we find it meets policy 1.2 of the housing element. The amendment will allow residential development along Tropicana Parkway where there is marginal depth for commercial development. The amendment would support townhouse development and provides residents with more variety in housing options in the area. We find it meets policy 1.15 of the future land use element, where the neighborhood commercial zoning of the site is consistent with the CAC future land use classification as shown in Table 1, Policy 1.15. And Policy 1.14 of our future land use element. These are our commercial sitting guidelines. 3 of the guidelines support the request to amend the condition. This includes a lack of adequate depth, compactness, and intrusion on adjacent residential. Staff found that the portion of the site along Tropicana Parkway lacks adequate depth for quality commercial development, and the owner lacks the ability to assemble land for additional depth. The current average depth there is about 134 feet. That's equivalent to about a half a block. So it also may be less intrusive to nearby property owners to develop this portion of the site with residential development. And we want to point out that suitable land is going to remain along Nelson Road for future commercial development. So all land within 260 feet of Nelson Road will be still subject to this condition where it needs to be developed as commercial or mixed use. This amendment for the portion of land along Tropicana, all this is doing is allowing them the option of developing under the current neighborhood commercial zoning. So the Cape Coral Planning Division recommended approval of the requested PDP amendment with conditions, as well as the hearing examiner recommending approval with conditions as outlined in the HEX recommendation. And I will stand by if you guys have any questions.
Thank you. Is there any testimony from the applicant? Would come forward, please.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Joe Mazurkowitz, President of BJM Consulting, here on behalf of the Stormwater 2 LLC, the both owner and applicant of this property. I want to make it very clear that this is not a rezoning. This is not a land use change. The only thing we are doing is eliminating this parcel from any of the existing PDP's requirement or prohibition of any freestanding residential. That is all we are doing here. I want to emphasize that because it seemed like the emails I saw and the testimony at the HEX hearing by the adjoining neighborhoods, they didn't quite understand what we were doing. I also want to put on the record that this piece of property in total in 2010 was changed to CAC land use. This CAC land use that exists for this property existed prior to the stormwater development. The stormwater development changed it to marketplace, and we rezoned it to marketplace residential in 2011. The stormwater development was a part of, came in after that, rezoned, and it was then therefore rezoned after that by the city from marketplace residential to neighborhood commercial in 2019 because marketplace residential was replaced by neighborhood commercial. My point I am trying to make, this land use in this zoning that we are asking to use pre-existed any of the development to the south of it. So anyone who came up and said, you know, my realtor told me it was never going to be used, it was going to be a park, or it was going to be something else, it is going to be used within the exact land use and zoning categories that it has been since 2010. Pre-existing the adjoining development. The only thing we're asking to do is eliminate the need for vertical integrated mixed use if we're going to put residential. Staff did a great job as identifying why this piece of property is not sufficient for that kind of use. And we showed a site plan, only conceptual only, how it could work for single-family attached or townhouses, whichever one you want to call them. But that is not, we have no plans to do that as of this time. We just want to remove this parcel from the requirement to do vertically integrated mixed use if we were going to do any residential. We think, and we have a traffic engineer here available if there's any question about the impact of this proposed change will be on the adjoining property. This proposed change will reduce the traffic impact to the adjoining properties. And if there's a question about that, we'll happily bring the traffic engineer up to testify. If not, we have him here available to you. With that, Mayor and Council, we respectfully request that you follow the recommendations of your staff, the hearing examiner, and approve this ordinance, taking this small parcel out of the PDP and allowing the development of freestanding residential. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now open up a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 37-24, please come forward. Come on, ma'am. And were you sworn in, ma'am? If not, the clerk will have to swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I really just have a question.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't understand all the...
State your name first for
My
the
name is
record.
Patty DiGio. I'm a resident of Stonewater.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be very honest with you, I don't understand all the rezoning, what they're trying to, it was zoned this, now they want to zone that, now they want to zone that. I just have a general question, no matter what zoning they change it to, I know they have to do certain steps and there's certain legalities that people have to go through. What's the end game that they want to put on that land? Because they're requesting for it to be zoned one way, which I understand, so they must have something in mind. And a couple months ago, it was townhomes. Now we're saying it's not townhomes, but we just want it to be rezoned. So they do have an idea of what they want to do, and it would be nice if we would know what that was, and it would put a lot of residents' minds at ease. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Can I get an answer to my question?
Just, this here isn't an open discussion, but it's a comment opportunity. Sir, you can come forward.
I also was not sworn in.
Over here to the left, sir.
Can we just ask anybody that hasn't been sworn in or plans to speak if they can?
Yeah. Anyone else going to speak? Okay, seeing none. Sir, one in the back.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Hi, Mayor and council members. Thanks for having us today. I'm Joshua Gammon. I'm a resident of the community in Stonewater. And in the reading of the PDP amendment, my opinion is that while they considered some things, other things were lacking. They don't know what they're going to really use it for, allegedly, and they don't contemplate the impact on the existing community in Stonewater. So if they do build residential, will those residents be part of our HOA, some other HOA? Will they use our facilities? Because there's explicit terms in our existing contracts for the HOA that says it's not necessarily limited to us. So it leaves that door open. So I feel like the proposal that they've submitted maybe has some unanswered questions that I, as a homeowner, would be interested to know. And I'm also curious to understand, and hope that the council and mayor would be curious to understand, the original PDP was zoned a particular way for a reason, as part of the original plan. So what changed? Like, did the land size change somehow? I guess I'm confused how the original proposal was ever approved, if the land size was not proper. And are there other small businesses in the community that are able to operate with that level of land size? I get it, you're not going to be able to put a Publix in these lot spaces, but perhaps a small business could exist there just fine with a small lot. I'm a little afraid of, like we heard some other proposals, like, and I do appreciate, like, you guys have a hard job. And it is nice to hear earlier that, like, your interaction with the federal government's a lot like the same interaction we have to have meaning that it's difficult. So I can appreciate you guys are dealing with difficult decisions, and I think it illustrates like you're our representatives as citizens, and we look to you for protection of our interests as citizens. That's one of the chief things that we feel like you guys are here for. And so, so I hope you consider what has changed, what hasn't changed, right? Land size, what has changed? We hear about water problems, we hear about traffic problems, we know that Cape Coral continues to grow, and I'm sure there's an interest in continuing that, but there should be a balance in residential and commercial. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak and represent our community. My name is Laura Hanchett, and I also live in Stonewater. And I think I'm just here to represent most of my neighbors in my community that, we just don't really know what's going to happen with that property. And we're concerned with a lot of the things that were said earlier. But I think one of the biggest things is Cape Coral is growing significantly, and I just have a feeling that the traffic is going to be significant in that area. There's already a lot of car accidents and a lot of issues around Nelson and Tropicana. So my biggest concern is we're looking at you guys so that you guys can represent us and to help keep that area more confined. I guess when we bought there, we were assuming that we were getting into a specific subdivision that was going to be gated and that it was going to be protected. And now the concerns are that if they do the townhouses or decide to create the townhouses, how is that going to affect our community? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance 37-24? Sorry? Sure, if you want to come up.
Joe Mazurkas, President BJM Consulting, once again, on behalf of the applicant and property owner. If the property would be developed as freestanding residential, it would not be part of their HOA. They would not be paying any fees. They would not be using any of their amenities, just as it would if it was going to be vertically integrated. They said we changed the use. We haven't changed the use in any of our presentations. Townhouses, single-family attached are the two descriptions of the same type of development. It's not any different. So those are the things that we presented from the beginning of the application. We haven't changed that. If we got this change allowed, that would be one of the things we would market to development. We personally don't have plans to develop it right now. That's why I'm trying to be straightforward. All we're asking is to eliminate the need for vertically integrated mixed use, which will bring more trips to the area. If you like, we have the traffic engineer come up and testified he did a traffic study on non-residential versus residential.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during the public hearing on 37-24? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 37-24? And then I'll open up for discussion.
Motion to deny ordinance, what was the ordinance? 37-24.
Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, with that, I'll open up for discussion. Councilmember Long, you were first.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so this obviously isn't something that I'll be supporting. I think that this council historically has or at least in the last couple of years, has taken a pretty staunch stance on these sorts of changes with regards to commercial, and I understand it's vertically integrated to residential. In fact, just to actually, I believe the north of this, a neighboring property came before us within the last year requesting a change from neighborhood commercial to residential, I believe mixed family, and this council denied it. So I think one of the points that I wanted to raise, and I think one of the gentlemen that spoke was getting to it as well, is that the PDP that was previously approved, one of the components in the PDP was included in the staff report, which was that future development shall not contain freestanding residential uses. And so that's what they're trying to do here, is alleviate that. So I guess my question would be that it seems like there's a little bit of sleight of hand going on, because if you originally agree to that particular PDP with that condition, and for all we know, in the context of that decision, when that PDP was approved, that might have been a contributing factor to the decision to approve that, was that condition was in there. So to now be able to come back, in my opinion, with a little bit of trickery and say, this is not a zoning change, and take another bite at the apple by, in a vacuum, eliminating that particular request, which again may have been a critical component to the original's approval, to me is not something that that I'm going to support. And I think that's it for this one. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Steinke.
Yeah, just a quick question for clarification, and Mr. Mazurkowitz, I was trying to catch you while you were still up there. When you talk about the vertically integrated, it would seem that if vertically integrated was implemented, there would be more residents within that given amount of space. True or not true?
Just to be clear, in talking about vertically integrated means commercial or non-residential on the first floor and then residential above. I don't know the answer to that. It could be more residential, it could be less residential. It doesn't, you could have as many units above as we would have on the ground.
Right.
So I could say, you know, but it doesn't have to be, it could be.
But we could still have residential use, if you will, as long as we meet the requirement of having the commercial.
As it sits right, that's correct. That's, as it sits right now, council member, we could have a similar number or maybe even the exact number of residential above non-residential uses on the ground floor.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Councilmember Carr.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. This question probably for staff. When coming to the recommendation of approval, you referenced the depth associated with typical or a better depth for commercial development. That typically would assume there's no opportunity to buy parcels to the rear to extend the depth. However, this particular parcel, there is significant land to the side. Do you contemplate that when you're assessing, the viability of developing commercial there? I mean, or you just strictly go with depth without any? Not every parcel has the access to the side of it, land availability that we do here. If you had a simple parcel on a well-developed road with no access to parcels to the sides, I mean, did that enter into the assessment at all, or does that enter into your assessment as a planner?
For the record, Amy Yearsley, Planning Manager. We do look at site constraints as they exist on the parcel when we're looking at depth. So if you're constrained by a lake, is something that we look at. Can something adequately be developed on that site?
Maybe my question's not clear, but I'm just curious. In other words, I understand that the depth would typically have to do, I would expect a lot to do with parking and access. Obviously, building size would come into play as well, but if you have the ability to move your parking to the side, you can now build a building further out to the roadway for setback purposes. So I'm just thinking about it from the standpoint of development. Yeah. As a commercial parcel, you're saying it's not viable because of the depth. I'm just wondering, because we have such significant side availability, does that enter into your assessment?
Configuration does play a role, yeah.
Okay. And you still would come to the same conclusion, you came to the same conclusion of recommending approval after that consideration as well?
Yes. Now, what we did when the original request came in, the original request looked at the entirety of the project. So when it was examined, we looked at the depth of the northern parcel versus the eastern parcel and saw that it had what we typically consider a more appropriate depth for our commercial, which is typically 250, which is why staff recommended retaining that, also recognizing the fact that we do have a deficit of commercial based on our interactive growth model, for specifically north of Pine Island Road. We didn't want to get rid of the entirety, but also recognize potential site constraints.
Okay, thank you.
Amy,
Thank
while
you.
you're up there, I have a quick question for you as well. And I think Councilmember Steinke touched on it briefly. Under the current PDP, the property owner, they could have commercial on the first floor but have residential on the second, correct?
Compound, correct?
Thank you. You know, when I look at this particular project, you know, it sounds like the applicant has a desire to keep all residential and not have any type of commercial development. I agree with Councilmember Long. I'm sure that was a part of the decision-making process back in 2015, was the commercial element in this particular project. When you look at, you know, our recent growth model that our city has received, as we know, we have a huge deficit in commercial development in our city. And I know I've said this time and time again, if we continue to change commercial viable development properties over to residential, we're only going to compound that problem. I think you can still achieve both elements here on this particular project with the PDP, where you put the commercial element on the first floor, and you could have the residential units up on the second floor. You know, also, if you take a look at, you know, a single family, as we all know, about 5,000 single-family residential homes a year that are permitted. We surely don't have a single-family home deficit. In our most recent study with multifamily, where we are today compared to where we were 5 years, we're leaps and bounds ahead in multifamily development as well for residential. So for me, it really boils down to those two things, mainly trying to keep as much commercial viability available for our city. And I think that we can still achieve, the property owners could still achieve additional residential units if they wish to do so on a second floor or above, and still have the commercial element there that is a vital need, not only in the city, but in this particular area as well. So for me, I'll support the denial, and that's the direction I'll go into. Mr. City Attorney?
I would just like to clear up the motion, if we would, please, and hopefully Councilmember Long will indulge me, that the basis for denial is for the fact that this would serve to eliminate the commercial at this area. Also, based upon the denial would be because there is a sufficient amount of single-family residential dwellings and multifamily residential dwellings, and that is the basis by way of which you are sitting in your quasi-judicial capacity denying this application based on those that you've discussed previously while the motion has been made.
Yes, sir, that's exactly what I meant to say.
And does the second agree?
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, and circle back to Councilmember Long.
Yeah, just to, I guess, clarify a point that's been made a few different times with regards to the vertical mixed use, and the commercial being on the first floor. The restriction onto in the current PDP for the future development not containing freestanding residential uses, that restriction does not pertain to freestanding commercial.
For the record, Mike Struve. No, it does not. In fact, if they wanted to develop the property with 100% commercial, our regulations would allow that. The NC zoning would support that.
Correct. So in other words, the reality here is that it doesn't make them as much money as the residential component, in my opinion, which is no secret. Of course, that's why there's a proliferation of multifamily units over here. So again, for the same reasons, I think we've got an obligation to preserve the very finite amount of commercial land that we have remaining. And I would ask you all to consider that in denying the request before us. Thank you.
Hold on, ma'am, there's no discussion right now. We'll have a staff member get with you after the hearing. Okay, seeing no other lights on, we have a motion for denial and a seconded. And Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
And that's as amended and stated.
Yes.
Steinke?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
No.
That's 6 ayes, 1 nay. Motion to deny carried.
Okay, it's 6:30. I think we'll take a 10-minute break, come back at 6:40. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We'll move on to item 10B, legislative public hearings. We have ordinance 20-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title and set the second and final public hearing date.
Ordinance 20-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Land Development Code, Article 4, Zoning Districts, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Table 4.1.6, Use Table, regarding social services, commercial recreation, indoor, commercial recreation, outdoor, commercial parking lot or garage, marine fuel pump, craft brewery, distillery, winery, restaurant, no drive-through, restaurant drive-through, distribution center, automotive towing establishment, heliport, helistop, and live/work space uses by amending Article 4 zoning districts, Chapter 2 specific regulations by district regarding marine fuel pump and craft brewery, distillery, winery uses, amending Article 5 development standards, Chapter 10 specific use regulations, P** uses in Table 4.4, regarding marine fuel pumps, and by amending Article 11, definitions, Chapter 1, general provisions, Section 11.2, definitions regarding automotive towing establishments, community centers, distribution centers, junkyards, live/work spaces, marine fuel pumps, professional services, social services, solid waste transfer stations, and yards, providing severability and an effective date. The second and final public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Struvey.
Good evening again, Mayor, council members. For the record, Mike Struvey. The purpose of ordinance 20-24 is to add several new uses to the city's use table appearing in Article 4. There are also several companion uses that are necessitated by this change. That includes not just changes to the use table, but one other table, 4.2.11, which provides dimensional requirements for the commercial quarter zoning district. Article 5, and in particular special regulations for a newly proposed use, a marine fuel pump use. And then lastly, Article 11 has been amended to include several new definitions as well as revisions to several existing definitions. 7 uses are proposed to be added to the LDC that currently are not allowed in the city. 4 of the 7 uses previously were allowed in the land use and development regulations, or up until the latter half of 2019. And those 4 uses that we are reintroducing, if you will, to the Land Development Code are social service use, automotive towing establishment use, and then 2 closely related uses, heliport and helistop. We're also recommending that the range of several existing uses be expanded. By that I mean that they are currently allowed in 1 or more zoning districts, and we're recommending that they be added to a new zoning district. So for example, we're recommending that an indoor commercial recreation use now be allowed in the industrial zoning district, as well as a craft brewery, distillery, and winery use, which is a small production alcohol-related use. We're recommending that parking garages or commercial parking lots, which we classify together, be added to 2 zoning districts, the commercial corridor zoning district and the mixed-use 7 Islands zoning district. And then on 2 closely related uses, we're actually recommending that we remove or eliminate from the industrial zoning district restaurants with drive-through facilities. So this would mainly be fast food establishments with drive-through facilities. But we're at the same time recommending that we allow or add restaurants without drive-through facilities. There are a couple changes to Table 4.2.11, which appears in the commercial corridor zoning district. Probably the most significant change is there's a lot of formatting. If you've looked at this table, there's a lot of cross-through and strike-through language there. We think that this will help to improve the readability of this table. But then secondly, we're also recommending that the floor area ratio, a measure of commercial intensity, actually be increased. We think that's appropriate for this district from 1 to 1.25. And then lastly, we're recommending changes to Article 11, which contains definitions of terms and uses that the city uses. We are recommending several new uses be defined that you see here highlighted in red on your screen. We're also recommending that we define 2 existing uses that are previously undefined, professional service use as well as a solid waste transfer station use. We're making 1 revision to an existing definition for a community center. And then lastly, we're incorporating into the code definitions for front, side, and rear yards. This is not a use per se, but our regulations refer to front, side, and rear yards in terms of where certain types of structures or activities can occur. In summary, we believe that the uses recommended by staff will provide new business opportunities for owners in the city and have the potential to increase the mix of goods and services here within the local community. Most uses proposed will appear in zoning districts where similar uses already exist, which should help reduce compatibility concerns. And in some instances, specific uses will be allowed only by special exception or with special regulations. Staff is recommending approval of Ordinance 20-24. The Planning and Zoning Commission at their May meeting recommended approval. There were no speakers at that hearing. We have had correspondence with one owner of a towing establishment in the city that is interested in relocating. And this is the first of 2 public hearings, and I'll be available in case you have any questions for me.
Okay, thank you. I'll now open up the first public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 20-24, please come forward. Seeing none, first public hearing is now closed. Reminder that the second and final public hearing is set for June 5th, 2024. Move on to Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. Just a quick question. When I went in the backup material to the ordinance and I went to definitions, I couldn't find a definition for heliport and helistop. Is there a reason for that? It's in alphabetical order and it jumps from D to I with nothing in between.
Those 2 terms, I believe, are currently defined in our land development code, but we never included those in the use table. So we actually have some uses and other terms that appear in our definition section that we never incorporated into our use table. So there's no need to provide a definition for something that already exists.
So if I go right to the code, I will find it there?
You should find it there in Article 11.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, we will move on to ordinance 30-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 30-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Land Development Code, Article 7, Signs, Chapter 3, Temporary Signs, Section 7.3.1, Temporary Signs, regarding temporary signs on real property, providing severability and an effective date.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. City Attorney, I guess, to start with.
I can bring it up and address the issues that we are amending here.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. So this amendment to the city's temporary signs includes specifically delineating within subsection A those prohibitions that currently exist within the table F. They have been struck through and they've been delineated with specificity within the temporary sign provision, with a couple different caveats, specifically when it pertains to temporary signs that are located in the public right-of-way. There are enhanced penalties and also subsequent penalties, along with an alternative enforcement process, which is very, very similar and actually identical to what it is this council has passed regarding Section 9-16. So it does create an affirmative responsibility where code enforcement, when they do take action, will issue a notice of violation with the accompanying fine, and then the violator would have to seek an appellate remedy before the city's special magistrate in order to hear the violation has been identified. Additionally, it does grant certain other requirements for those individuals who do place signs on private property. There is an ability for city staff, code enforcement, in order to verify that that sign has been lawfully placed on private property, and that lawful placement on private property will then require written approval of that property owner, leasee, or person in control of such property in order to validate the placement and existence of that sign on private property. So those are the additional requirements that have been set forth within this ordinance amendment. It does identify enforcement, who is legally authorized to enforce it, along with the timeframes and requirements for seeking an appeal, and also a prohibition from any modifications of that fine as it's identified right now, and the fines amount based upon each sign that's taken from the public right-of-way. And I can answer any questions if there's any specificity.
Thank you. I now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 30-24, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Besser. I'm the Director of Public Policy for the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association. I understand what this ordinance does tonight, and I know it is currently already on the books, and this is just adding a little bit of extra enforcement. However, I rise tonight to say that I was unable to attend the first public hearing. I want to thank Councilman Stanky and Councilman Carr for their comments towards the real estate industry. Really, what our issue with this ordinance is it's not really my members, but homeowners' ability to market their homes. Any ordinance for temporary signs, I'd love to work with the city attorney or the city staff to find a way for homeowners to be able to market their homes where it's also not intrusive to the city or to the city's right-of-way. We can find a permitting process, a time limit, something of that nature that allows homeowners to market their homes, and to make sure that our right-of-way and our city signs and our neighborhoods are not full of temporary signs that are basically garbage, which I know a lot of you are trying to deal with, and I respect that. But if we can just find some kind of middle ground here for homeowners to market their homes, this ordinance only hurts them. My members are contractors. They're just trying to help their clients sell their homes. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on ordinance 30-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 30-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any council discussion? Councilmember Steinke.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge and certainly give support to Mr. Besser's comments. There's got to be some way to find a way to make this work. We certainly have a great number of unprofessional signs that are out there that clutter up our roadways, certainly impede the ability to see around corners, and we have an issue with that throughout the city. We have the same thing with A-frames and a variety of other non-permanent signs that require a permit are installed and we forget about them. But the temporary signs that are used, certainly Cape Coral is a mecca for property transitions. We sell thousands of homes, existing homes every year, and for a homeowner to help a potential buyer find their home to see it, for open houses and things like that, if done in a professional manner, there's got to be a way to get that done. In some discussions that I had with our city attorney's office, most of what would seem to be simple ways to do that, you can't just carve one industry out, and that every other industry, will buy your junk car for cash sign wanter would be able to apply for the same type of permitting and whatnot. So I certainly agree that we need to do something to stop all the rampant signage that we have out there that's unprofessional, but I'll stay committed to try to find some way that we can get professional temporary signage allowed somehow, some way. But other than that, for the purpose of getting rid of the unprofessional, unwanted, scattered signs that are out there, I can see why we need this, but I'll still stay committed to doing some type of method by which we can do it professionally. Thanks.
Councilmember Carr?
Thank you, Mayor. I also won't be supporting this ordinance, mainly because of the enhanced civil penalties that are imposed, the first offense, and escalating from there with virtually no latitude. I understand the theory behind that. However, I think that this ordinance already exists to a degree. Anything in the right-of-way can be removed already. If there is a habitual offender, they can be prosecuted through our code process as it exists today. And once they've been found guilty, they can be fined immediately upon any future violation. So I think the tools are there. I'm not saying that we can't. I think there is some work needed in this entire ordinance, not just specific to this section that we're trying to address today. And I think that there's some unintended consequences here that I think we should try to avoid. So that's the reason for my lack of support for the ordinance today.
Councilmember Long?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify a point that Councilmember Steinke was raising, and he actually addressed it himself. But yeah, it's unfortunate that we cannot provide any specific carve-outs to the industry. This is, of course, isn't an attack on one specific industry, and certainly I remember when Mr. Besser first came forward and presented his objections a year or so ago, and I thought that we had made a pretty decent workaround with regards to some of the oppositions to the original proposal. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, like I think Councilmember Steinke was alluding to, maybe throwing out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak, with regards to, well, we can't get it perfect, so let's deny it and maybe come back. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect because of all the restrictions that are placed on us when the manner in which we can regulate and it can't be it has to be content neutral. So this is our best foot forward, so to speak. I think this was an issue back then. It's been an issue in certain different iterations for different reasons over time. Post hurricane, there was all kinds of advertising for contractors and mold and roofing and elections. So to Councilmember Carr's point, I think he specifically carved out his objection to the enhanced civil penalties, which only pertain to those signs that are placed in the right-of-way. I mean, I don't know that there should be any specific consideration given to those that place their sign on property that they don't own. It's very apparent when those individuals place their signs in the right-of-way that they don't have permission to do it, and so any objection to any civil penalties associated with that, I'm not sympathetic to. So with that, I think that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember Shepherd?
I'm for it if it just sticks to the right of way and not private property.
Okay, for me, in reviewing this, I know we've had this discussion the last 6.5 years. I've been here a couple times. I think as far as the right-of-way, we don't allow signs in the right-of-way now. This, if anything, just kind of codifies exactly a mechanism in place to make sure that there is some type of enforcement action that can take place. As we all know, this happens every day in our city. You can go out there any day, and you're going to see signs in our right-of-way. Look, just remember back to the hurricane. Boy, our city was littered with roofing and other signs in the right-of-way, in the medians. So they were all over the place. So I think that would, help with that, with that issue that we have, and then just the normal day-to-day. You see realtors every weekend. They're out there putting signs up in the right-of-way before, if this passes, even before this ordinance is passed, and they're not allowed to be there. The big thing for me, especially when it comes to right-of-way, is we don't want someone to go out there and put a sign down, and it's in a sight alignment where they can't see the traffic coming. And for whatever reason, it may impede their view, and there's an accident. For me, that's some of the things that I look at regarding this particular ordinance. Some of the other issues regulations that identified in here will also mitigate some other issues that we've had with signs throughout the city. So I'll support the ordinance as it's presented here today. Councilmember Carr?
I'd just like to clarify with the city attorney. I was under the impression the enhanced penalty included all violations of this section, to include the one without permission or written permission from a property owner.
No, the enhanced penalty only applies to a violation of 731A3, which is the temporary signs that are on public right-of-way. That's the only enhanced penalty. We only limit it to that and that alone. All the rest have the penalty that's delineated in G1A, which is $25 per sign.
Which is an increase from today, correct? The $25 per sign?
That is, it's a different process where the code enforcement officer, if they were to find, for example, a violation of, let's say, number 2, and let's say there were 3 signs that were unpermitted or without permission of the property owner, the violation would be a $75 fine. They would write them a notice of violation for $75. The violator then can choose to either appeal or pay.
So, but that is not in the right-of-way?
That is not in the right-of-way.
So that's my point. In other words, it's
It is
not
in the
specific to right-of-way violations. If you just, what you just described was on the property, if you have 3 signs in excess of, the
So
permitted.
if I was to take 3 violations, or if there's a violation in a right-of-way, the fine is $500 per sign.
Okay, let's move beyond the right-of-way. If I'm on the property, I don't have written permission to provide, do I get a fine, an immediate civil penalty? Or could I?
You would get, the fine is $25 per sign.
Okay, so that is an enhanced penalty from what we currently have in our code today, correct?
It is a penalty right
Well, an
now.
immediately imposed penalty, which does
That
not
is-
exist today in
you're
our
absolutely
current
correct.
code. Okay, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure. I thought when I read it, I did see that.
Yeah, you're correct.
It's not just for right-of-way violations.
It is an immediate penalty. The very moment the code compliance officer determines that there's a violation, he assesses a monetary fine. That is different than what you currently have right now. You are correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting spin on words, though, because there's a specific provision that is stated as enhanced civil penalties.
Councilmember Carr has the floor.
Just the other quick question I had was, how do garage sale signs, how are they impacted by this ordinance, or are they?
I believe that they're allowed to get a garage permit, if I'm not mistaken.
They are, and there are certain sign requirements and capabilities. Are they going to be impacted negatively by this change?
They
in the
should not be. It would be part of the permitting process, so they would have approval for that.
Okay. So it's not just specific to the real estate association, it's also, I think there's some other elements that I'm opposed to with regard to it. So I don't want to limit it to the content base, which I agree with, is not supposed to be content-based assessments. So my opposition is for what I stated, and that's the enhanced penalty, the necessary requirements to put out an incidental, not incidental, because that's another definition within the ordinance. But I will oppose, but for the reasons I described. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke?
Thank you. I just wanted to remind folks that this with permission is an important piece. So if there needs to be a sign at a location, instead of it being stuck at the street, it can be placed on the private property with that property owner's permission. So if there needs to be, 3 signs to get someone directed to a location, they simply have to have the permission of the property owner where that sign would be placed. The sign can't be placed at the road. It has to be placed up on the private property with permission of the property owner. So that's certainly a way that would require an additional step that many people don't take, but they need to at this point to avoid the penalty.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yeah, the only problem I'm foreseeing is when the next election takes place, when people run for office and they have gatherings, they'll usually give out signage to people that want to support them, and you can tell the people, what the regulations and rules are, where the signs are allowed to be and where they're not allowed to be. But are we going to be fining these people so much money per sign if they're placed, in the wrong locations?
The fine will go to the sign the sign, the individual. For example, if it's Ajax Paving, it would go to Ajax Paving violation, not to the property owner, because Ajax Paving is the one that improperly placed the sign without permission. We are going after the violator, not the homeowner.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is when somebody runs for office here in Cape Coral.
If they run for office and they improperly place a sign, it'll go against.
So they have the responsibility of where the sign goes, even if someone else did it?
Yes, they do.
Okay. so
That's how this
we
is.
need- We need to
that
get
is how
that
this is-
information out there.
Yeah, that is how this is drafted for that. It holds the individual that places the sign responsible.
Woo, okay.
Okay, I don't see any other discussion. We have a motion and a second on the floor. If I... I'm sorry.
So at $500 a sign, a candidate has an event and hands out 200 push signs to the people that come to support them. Those people go home and they don't put them up on their property, they put them on the street. 200 times 500 is going to be that candidate's penalty because that candidate, the name is on the sign?
If they all are violating the ordinance, then that would be correct.
And so what's to stop someone from taking someone else's sign and putting it in an improper place and hitting them $500 a pop? Forget just political signs, any sign.
So remember, there is still an appeal process where they can come before the special magistrate and set forth the appropriate evidence to establish that this was not something that they have done, nor that they instruct them to do, and they could plead their case as they're required to.
Are you finished, Councilmember Stanky?
Yes.
Better get some donations while you're handing out them signs.
We got a couple years to figure it out before I got to put a sign out.
You know, when you, I guess I have a little bit of an issue with that. Typically, I think in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. City Attorney, if there was a sign violation, it typically went to the property owner versus whose name was on the sign. I'll give you an example. If I wanted to, our Cape Coral City Attorney is great, and we make a bunch of signs up there, and we go put them, 500 of them out in the right-of-way. Sounds like you're getting a bill.
That would never be a violation.
Okay.
But, so if, in that, let's say it's Ajax Paving, and Ajax Paving puts it in the city's right-of-way, it's not going to be the city that's going to receive the violation, it's going to be Ajax Paving. And I will tell you this, in my experience, if Ajax Paving retained a third party in order to paper the city with these signs in the right-of-way, then that is a legal dispute between Ajax Paving and who they hired regarding those signs. Could Ajax Paving then go to us, provide the contractual agreement, so we could initiate enforcement action against that third party? Absolutely, and I would encourage that.
So is the signs in the right-of-way, they go back to whoever is on the sign?
Yes.
Say you put a sign on private property, you don't have permission, then it's a $25 fine.
Say that one more time, I apologize.
The sign is placed on private property.
Yes.
The individual or the company who put the sign up, there's a $25 fine for that. But does that go to the property owner or to the person on the sign?
That'd be the person on the sign, because as it stands right now, the way it is drafted, it is a temporary sign that's on private property that's placed there without the written approval of the property owner.
And one other question is temporary signs. I know you, even on residential property, you're only allowed so many, I think 4 or 5. I can't recall.
You are correct. There is a numerical value for single-family residential dwelling. It is 3. For multifamily, it's 2 to 6, and for non-residential, it is 2.
And for residential, it was 3, is that?
3, yes.
Okay. So we have a homeowner in the city. This is a perfect year for that, for this example. We have 5 open seats. They go out and they put 5 signs for each candidate that they want to support. Who gets the violation? Does the homeowner get that violation, or and if it's the person on the sign, how does the police officer or the code enforcement identify who gets, there's 5 signs there, who gets the fine?
So in that situation, because it exceeds the numerical value that's permitted on the residential property, that violation goes to the property owner.
Yeah, this is very complex. All right, I see some other lights on, so,
But that, and I want you to understand, that's existing.
That's already there.
Yeah, that
yes.
All
that
of
has
this
not
is
been
already
touched by this.
Right.
I want you all to understand that. So had we not even touched this, you would have that very same situation. It's existing language.
So say there's a commercial vacant property, since I still have the floor, and then I'll turn it over to,
A non-residential district?
yep. Yeah, we have a commercial zone property, and we have a candidate, and this has happened in the past. They go to put a 4x4 sign up in the city. They just pull up, oh, we got a vacant lot, we stick it down. This is where I'm gonna put it. What is the fine for that, and who gets the
Right,
fine?
and so we're talking about a non-residential district. They put up a 4x4 sign
Without written permission.
without written permission, so that would go to the person who is on the sign. And that would be a $25 fine for that violation, because there's only one sign. And they have not exceeded the maximum sign area. Since it's a 4x4, it's only 16 square feet, and therefore, it would not be to the property owner, it would just be the person on the sign. Ajax Paving, sorry, I use Ajax probably, I need to stop.
Yeah, the other thing that I was thinking about as well, if I was a candidate, instead of buying signs for myself, I'd probably buy signs for my opponent and put them everywhere
out
where
of
they're,
business.
where they're not where they're supposed to be. So that could happen as well.
And from my experience, that does happen. That
Yep.
does happen.
So,
But I would anticipate that the code compliance department and its officers will use their appropriate judgment. and enforcement.
Councilmember Steinke, I think you're good.
I'm taken care of.
All right, Councilmember Long, you're next.
Yeah, just like anything else, you could what if this whole thing to death. A lot of the stuff that you guys talked about having an issue with, it's already exists in our code. I mean, if it's not something that you guys want to support, that's great. We don't need to spend any more time on it. But, you know, in the kind of career, and I respect that you guys have positions and you got to defend them, but to go to the extent of what if this guy did this and grabbed their sign? I mean, what if I went to somebody's property and turned their sprinklers on the wrong day and they got a watering violation? Should we repeal the whole dang watering violation ordinance? I mean, there's a point where you draw a line. You get to, we had a situation that was presented to us. This was our best foot forward in resolving it. If you guys want to red tape it to death and allow the condition to continue, that's fine with me. That's sort of how this works. We bring it forward, we talk through it. If there's not enough support, then we don't. I think that this is a step in the right direction to resolving the problem that was presented to us. But again, if we want to poke holes in it, that's fine. With regards to the open house stuff, I get it. I'm sympathetic to it. You'd be hard pressed to find another municipality in the state that allows open house signs in their right of way. So again, we're not the enemy. We're not creating a problem that didn't previously exist or a prohibition. It's been there. That's always going to be an issue. To be frank, that wasn't the crux of the issue. The big one was the right of way stuff. Unfortunately, they got caught in a larger net, like a lot of other things in the world with regulations. So those are just my final points on the what ifs, and I think it's probably, if there's not enough support, let's just get it over with and move forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Shepherd.
The only problem I have, I want to clean the city up. I don't want to have these signs that are littering everywhere. I get it. I'm all about making our city look better. The only thing that bothers me is I think it's mainly the political signs that are going to be the problem. I mean, if, I don't want to use the company, but the company that was used for an example, I don't think there's anybody that's going to go around and if they put their sign in the right spot, go and move it. You know, I mean, the likelihood of that happening. But when it comes to politics, we've had things in the past where different people messed with people's political signs, and you know, it's a touchy subject, and I can just imagine signs being put where they're allowed and with permission, and I can picture people moving them to create a problem. So the fine part bothers me, the penalty, because you're penalizing somebody that might not have had control over the sign being relocated. So that's the only problem I have. But I get it. I mean, these signs for all different services, people are, you can pull up to a street light and you can see 6 and 7 of them on one median at the traffic light. I get it. Thank you.
If I may add, if the monetary amount for the enhanced civil penalties is a concern, because I know Councilmember Stanky brought that up, you do have the ability to at this juncture modify that, reduce it if that moves or alleviates some of the concern. That is certainly an option you folks can do right now. You know, if it's 500 and 1,000 that you're concerned, it could always be slashed in half. 250, 500, but that's up to you.
Did you have something, Councilmember Stein?
I did. Because I spoke previously that I felt that for the good of the order and the mainstay of the legislation that I would support it. But now with the additional conversation that has been had, I think we need it, but I think it needs to be worked a little bit. I think it needs to be worked a little bit, and I don't know that we can come to conclusion here on just slash it in half and that solves all the problems of the world by making it 250 and 500. So I think it needs revision, but I think it still needs a little bit of work before I'm going to be happy with it. Thanks.
Well, I just want to provide a possibility for us, then I guess we could continue this, Mr. City Attorney. I know we have a motion and a second on the floor. That would be the motion maker that would have to make that determination. But could we continue it to a committee of the whole meeting where we have a discussion and maybe vet it a little more and try to get it right? Not that it's not right. Maybe we can get it better, or maybe we can't. But you know, and I think this will probably be an hour discussion. So I think it would be better to have it on a committee of the whole. So I don't know who the motion maker was, but
I believe it was Councilmember Hayden. So if there's, if Councilmember Hayden wants to make an amendment to this motion as opposed to approval, that it be continued to the committee of the whole meeting in July?
May 22nd.
I wouldn't recommend that. That'll give me time for me to speak with you and see if we can't get
So
to
you
it.
would or you wouldn't?
I would not recommend it till next, to next Wednesday.
Then July 31st.
But that's my thoughts on it, because
July 31st.
because I'm thinking between now and next week, is that something that, could something viable occur at the committee of the whole? I don't know that it would, in terms of an amendment or clarification. But that's up to you folks.
All right. Councilmember Long, I see your light back on.
Yeah, with regards to continuing it, I don't know how much more time we should waste on this. If the main hang-up here, which is fine, is, you know, if someone goes and grabs a sign and puts it in the meeting or whatever, there's no way that you can legislate around that. Otherwise, laws wouldn't exist if you could completely eliminate lawlessness with a couple sentences on paper. So, which is fine if that's your position, but I don't think that we should waste any more staff resources if that's still going to be your position at the CAL, is that, you know, you can't get around the hang-up that someone else might be able to move the sign. I mean, yeah, it's an illegal act to do that.
It'll be an illegal act. It'll still be a violation. It just,
Like I said, I'm not opposed to your beliefs in that, but if that's your belief, which apparently to some of you it firmly is, why waste any more time on it?
No, it would be, and it would, even if you were not to adopt this, it would still be a violation. It's just the monetary structure of the penalty will be different. That's all.
And I would think that if an individual picks a sign up and takes it to a different location and installs it, just let it die. To me, that's theft.
No.
Could rise to the
It
level.
could be the rise to the level of theft, but that had to be committed in the presence of a law enforcement officer for them to take any lawful action. But if that were to happen and the law enforcement officer didn't see, the violation would still go to who's on the sign. And
Mr.
then
City Attorney, am I able to call the question at this point?
You could certainly do that.
Yeah, I'd like to do that, please.
Okay, is there a second?
Well, there's a motion and a second.
Right.
And so Councilmember Long, pursuant to Robert's rule, has called for the question on the motion that presently exists.
Does he need a second for the question?
He does need a second.
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Madam City Clerk, call the roll for the question.
Steinke?
Nay.
Carr?
I'm confused on the motion now.
Motion to
The
approve.
motion was to call the question,
Motion is
correct?
to approve.
Yeah, it's for the
You have to-
question.
you have to
Oh, I'm
vote
sorry.
It's for the question.
Call the question.
Stop the
You have to have a
discussion.
majority vote for the
Right.
question.
Okay, not for
If
the-
it passes, then we'll call a vote.
Yeah,
Right, thank you.
to stop all the debate, essentially.
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
No.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? 5 ayes, 2 nays, motion carried.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll for the motion.
Steinke?
No.
Carr?
No.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? 4 ayes, 3 nays, motion carried.
Okay, let's move on to next item on the agenda is ordinance 36-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 36-24, an ordinance approving and granting to Lee County Electric Cooperative, Inc., a perpetual easement for a right-of-way to be used for the construction, operation, and maintenance of one or more overhead and underground electric distribution lines across property owned by the city that is the intersection of Averill Boulevard and North Del Prado Boulevard, as more particularly described herein. Authorizing and directing the mayor to execute the easement. A copy of the easement is attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, providing severability and an effective date.
Okay, thank you. We'll turn it over to staff. Ms. Andrews?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, Dawn Andrews with the Real Estate Division. Ordinance 36-24 is providing the city to grant an easement to LCEC, 3 6-foot wide utility easements at the edge of the North Del Prado Boulevard right-of-way in the vicinity of Averill Boulevard and Del Prado Boulevard North, and I'll stand by for any questions. This is for the installation of a new traffic signal. I wanted to throw that in there.
Okay, thank you. I'll now open up public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 36-26, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion regarding ordinance 36-24?
Motion to approve.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Steinke?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long? Shepherd? 7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to ordinance 38-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Ordinance 38-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Code of Ordinances, Chapter 27, Community Redevelopment, Section 27-1, Community Redevelopment Agency, regarding voting requirements, providing severability and an effective date.
Okay, I'll turn it over to, okay.
If you recall, during a previous CRA meeting, there was a request for an amendment to the ordinance establishing the CRA. More specifically, there was a request to make a supermajority requirement in the event that the city council wanted to no longer be the Board of Commissioners for the CRA. This amendment accomplishes that. It now requires a seventh, eight vote in order to change the CRA Board of Commissioners to someone other than the mayor and city council. So that is what the effect is of this proposed legislation as we sit here today.
Okay, thank you. I now open up public hearing. Anyone who wish to speak on ordinance 38-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding ordinance 38-24?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any council discussion? Councilmember Carr.
Just a quick question, maybe it's not a quick question, but how many other, do we have any, what other things require a supermajority vote today? Anything?
Since my time here with the city, I'm unaware of anything.
And I'm unaware of anything either. So, okay, so no other things other than what we're proposing in this ordinance is done by supermajority today?
As of right now, but I am very familiar with other jurisdictions that do in fact create supermajority votes on various different topics, if that provides you any.
It does. Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Steinke?
Aye.
Carr?
No.
Costin?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long? Shepherd? 6 ayes, 1 nay, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to ordinance 39-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the final public hearing.
Ordinance 39-24, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cape Coral, Florida, enacting Article 16, School Zone Speed Enforcement. Chapter 12 of the Cape Coral Code of Ordinances, establishing a school zone speed enforcement program and authorizing the use of speed detection systems within the identified school zones in the city of Cape Coral. Providing for program implementation requirements, providing for designation of school zones, providing for enforcement and administrative procedures, providing for collection of evidence, public records and retention requirements, providing for annual reporting requirements, providing for remittance of collected fines and costs, resolution of conflicting laws, providing for codification, providing for severability and an effective date. The final public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Mr. City Attorney, you're a busy man tonight.
Busy, yes, and I'm going to try to keep it very, very brief. This is legislation that ultimately passed on April 28th of 2023. It was signed by the governor on May 31st of 2023, requiring a promulgation by the Florida Department of Transportation for rules allowing for the implementation of the speed cameras, which are nearly similar and identical to the red light cameras. There is a requirement pursuant to the Florida statutory law that there be a traffic study that is accomplished. I have worked with the city manager's office in conjunction with Public Works and more importantly with the police chief and his department in terms of establishing the necessary requirements in order to meet the provisions of Florida law where there's a heightened risk for speeding within the school zones. We will be bringing more specificity delineated for compliance with the statutory requirement and what that will entail at the Committee of the Whole meeting on May 22nd. And then the data that has been identified necessitating the need, which the chief will provide further information at the Committee of the Whole meeting and the final hearing, is attached. It is publicly available for those individuals that may be looking at this, and so we have started the process in order to ensure compliance, that the data is there, and that the proposed ordinance is available as well. I can address any questions, but more specific information will come next Wednesday at the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to point out there are a number of operational issues that would stem from this vote. So if the council does move forward establishing the ability to utilize this as a method of regulating speed in school zones as part of that COW, we will also have a series of informational aspects related to the administration of this and what it would take to adequately administer this, all those program ideas. They're not being presented tonight because if this doesn't pass, then it's irrelevant. But if it does pass, we will be presenting all that information at the next meeting.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is a initial public hearing, so there'll be no vote tonight?
It is an initial public hearing, you're correct, but in order to meet the more stringent requirements for that, it is viewed as more than what you're traditionally doing for introductions.
But there's no vote by
There
council?
is no vote required.
Right, okay. Did I, Madam City Clerk, did I open up public hearing yet?
Not yet.
Okay, so let me do that first. I'll now open up the initial public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 39-24, please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Councilmember Long.
Yeah, can I just get some clarification on how, I guess, the city manager has described the cow, and then I guess some resulting effects of what might come from the cow with regards to programming and things like that? I guess, how did that come about? I mean, what we're doing here is just simply establishing an ordinance that allows for the availability to bring this forward. Is something like the cow statutorily required, or how did we get a cow out of this?
The cow was identified as the basis by way of which the data would be presented to the council with more specificity and detail. Because in order to justify the validity of the speed cameras to be located within a school zone, it must have a heightened security. During that committee of the whole meeting is when all that will be promulgated to you, establishing the validity of the ordinance and the location of where those speed cameras would be found.
So those things are statutorily required?
Yes.
So, but I guess my question is, why couldn't they just be done at a public meeting, a voting meeting?
They could. They most certainly could. If
I mean,
you
for
wanted to.
expediency, I don't see any issues arising from the cow that would halt this from moving forward. I would prefer to, I guess, ask all of you guys.
It is scheduled right now for June 5th. It is scheduled right now for June 5th, and all of that can in fact be presented at June 5th if that is the will of the council.
That's typically how it would work, is what I've seen from previous. And I'm not trying to discourage any input. Everyone's going to have their opportunity for input there. And frankly, I don't believe that the way the statute's written that there is any room for much input. You either like it or you don't. I just, again, trying to be efficient here. I don't know that we need to load this on a cow, especially considering that we just had a meeting where, you know, apparently public input is more predominant in the evenings, which would be at a voting meeting, and now we're doing the bulk of our discussion on this in a public meeting that's held during the daytime.
So you're correct, Councilmember Long. There's no requirement that this go to the committee of the whole. Everything that would be presented at the committee of the whole can in fact be addressed at the June 5th final hearing regarding its adoption.
So then I guess what I would need to ask the rest of you, or how would this work as far as whether we want to put it on a cow or just discuss it at the meeting?
Why don't we just go down the line?
Can we do that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we can go down the line and see if we want to have this discussion when we have our last and final public hearing, present all the facts at that time, have the chief, police chief come up and provide whatever information he wants to provide, and then we can make a decision from there. Or we do this at a committee at a whole. To me, we're adding another step we really probably don't need, but we'll see what.
Because again, we're not approving any contracts or anything like that. We're just providing ourselves an ability to move forward with this if we wanted to.
And there will be a presentation. There will be a presentation from the city attorney's office regarding this.
Right. So we'll just start with Councilmember Cosden, and do we want to have this discussion at a CAL meeting and then have the public hearing as well, or do we just wait and have all the information presented at the final hearing?
Just in the final hearing.
Final hearing.
Final.
Final.
Same.
Okay.
Perfect.
So,
Thank
Madam
you.
City Clerk, if you could remove that from next week's CAL, please. All right. We've already closed the public hearing. Just a reminder that the final public hearing is set for June 5th, 2024 for ordinance 39-24. 10C is introductions. First introduction is Resolution 155-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Resolution 155-24, a resolution providing for the vacation of plat for a portion of the Bimini Canal right-of-way and underlying easements adjacent to lots 9 and 10, Block 160, Cape Coral, Unit 4, Part 2, providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements associated with lots 9 and 10, Block 160, Cape Coral, Unit 4, Part 2, property located at 5322 Bayside Court, providing an effective date. The public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, move on to ordinance 17-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 17-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from intensive development, a Lee County designation, to commercial/professional land use for property described as lots 1, 2, 14, and 15, Block 3, Pondella Heights, Unit 2, and lots 20 and 21, Block 2, Pondella Heights, Unit 2, property located at 1205 through 1212 Pine Lake Drive and 1206 through 1212 Westwood Drive, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 18-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 18-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12.5, Parks and Recreation, Article 1, Regulations, Section 12.5 through 4, Rules and Regulations regarding motorized toy and model airplanes, boats, and cars in city parks, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 32-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 32-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Land Development Code, Article 4, Zoning Districts, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 4.1.5, Projections and Encroachments into Setbacks, and Article 5, Development Standards, Chapter 1, General Requirements for All Development, Section 5.1.13, Single-Family Residential Standards, regarding generators in front of single-family residences and setback regulations, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 33-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 33-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Land Development Code, Article 5, Development Standards, by creating Chapter 13, Conversion of Non-Conforming Residential Sites to Commercial Sites, regarding the redevelopment of commercial sites with existing single-family or duplex dwellings, providing for purpose and applicability, providing for standards, providing severability, and an effective date. The public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, move on to ordinance 34-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 34-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral, Florida Land Development Code, Article 5, Development Standards, Chapter 4, Marine Improvements, Section 5.4.8, Bulkheads, Seawalls, and Retaining Walls, regarding alternative shoreline stabilization, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, move on to ordinance 40. Is it 40-24?
40-24.
Yep, ordinance 40-24. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 40-24, an ordinance approving deeds of transfer of slip credits to an identified qualifying receiving parcel located at 5819 Driftwood Parkway from the City of Cape Coral, a Florida Municipal Corporation, to the City of Cape Coral, a Florida Municipal Corporation, approving deeds of conservation easement and covenant limiting watercraft slips between the City of Cape Coral, a Florida Municipal Corporation, and Lee County, a political subdivision of the state of Florida, authorizing the mayor to execute the deeds of transfer of slip credits to an identified qualifying receiving parcel and the deeds of conservation easement and covenant limiting watercraft slips, sending parcels located at 3918 Pine Island Road Northwest, 3922 Pine Island Road Northwest, and 3926 Pine Island Road Northwest, providing for severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 41-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 41-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 6, Pensions, Division 1, Police Pension, amending Section 2-121.27, Deferred Retirement Option Plan, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. The public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 42-24. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 42-24, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 6, Pensions, Division 3, General Employees Pension, amending Section 2-123.24, Deferred Retirement Option Plan, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. The public hearing will be June 5th, 2024.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, reports. Councilmember Carr, report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing, I just want to thank the chief for having the event today, recognizing it's National Police Week, and today specifically is National Peace Officer Memorial Day, so I just want to remember our law enforcement officers and the loss of life we've had over the past year. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Cosden.
I have no report.
Councilmember Hayden.
No report.
Councilmember Long. Councilmember Shepherd.
Yeah, I attended the mayor's scholarship, and there was some young adults there that were unbelievable that got the scholarships, and I just want to commend the parents that raised them. That they did a great job. There are some great young adults there that got scholarships there, and they should be very proud. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinke.
Thank you. A few things before I go into some of my recent attendance. I would like to use the venue, since we have 7 of 8 CRA commissioners here. At our May 1st regular meeting, we as a council voted on a revised meeting calendar, and I'd like to briefly discuss the CRA meeting that we have scheduled for July 17th at 9 a.m. That same day, we have a regular meeting that's scheduled at 4:30 p.m., leaving a big gap between start times. So I'd like to propose that we would move the CRA meeting from July 17th at 9 a.m. to that July 31st date at 9 a.m. Prior to our cow that we have that day. So that would move our CRA meeting from July 17th at 9 to July 31st at 9.
And I don't have a problem with that, but Mr. City Attorney, do we need a motion for that calendar change?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to adopt it,
Okay.
and that'd be done by a motion.
So, Councilmember Steinke, would you like to put that in a motion for him?
I'd like to make a motion that we would vote to move the CRA meeting presently scheduled for July 17th at 9 a.m. to July 31st at 9 a.m.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Steinke?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Cosden?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? 7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you, I appreciate that. On the 9th, last week, I attended the Lee County Tourist Development Council as the liaison from the city, and happy to report that we got approval from the TDC for nearly $1 million in TDC money for projects that we have here in the Cape. All that is required now is that since some of the monies need to come out of TDC reserves, that the Board of County Commissioners has to ratify that, and we have a general indication that there's positive result going to come from that. Also on the same day, attended the CCCIA monthly meeting, where Commissioner Ruane provided an recovery update with what is happening with the funds there, what's been done, and some things that still need to be done. On the 10th, was liaison to my first youth council meeting with the incoming class 24-25, where they elected their chair. Some very, very bright kids, students are entering the youth council for this year. On the 14th, attended Mayor's Scholarship Award celebration. I agree with Councilman Shepard. Some brilliant kids there that are going to get assisted to go off for their secondary education. And then this morning attended the Fallen Officer Memorial at Cape Coral Police Department. Excellent job done preparing. Our chief did a great job recognizing the officers and the families of those fallen heroes that we have. So great job on that. That's it for me.
Okay, before I get in my report, two quick things I wanted to mention. You know, as I believe Councilmember Carr had mentioned, May 12th to May 18th is National Police Week. In 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as the National Peace Officers Memorial Day. National Police Week pays special recognitions to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. So I also want to just give asked our community, like I did with our fallen veterans, asked our community to say a prayer for families of our fallen officers, because that's something that they have to live the rest of their lives with. So I know that's got to be one of the most difficult things. So I just asked our community to pray for those families. Also today is National Public Works Week, which is between May 19th and May 25th. National Public Works Week is recognized by the American Public Works Association. Gives the city of Cape Coral the opportunity to highlight the hard work and dedication of the City Public Works Department. This morning with our city manager, many of our management team, and our public works employees, we recognize them this morning, thank them for their hard work and dedication. I also issued a proclamation to the Public Works Department to celebrate the National Public Works Week. As I mentioned this morning, that is a part of the backbone of our community to keep our city up and running. So I just wanted to publicly thank them again for all their hard work and dedication throughout the year. Also, back on May the 10th, participated in my weekly meeting with the city manager and staff and the Senator Scott regarding FEMA updates. I will tell you that his office was a very important and vital part to getting some answers that we needed from FEMA, not only for our city, but all the municipalities in the county as well. And also, as I believe Councilmember Shepard mentioned, I know Councilmember Hayden was there as well. I attended the Mayor's Scholarship Awards last night, and I'm pleased to announce that there were 10 recipients for $1,000 scholarships that they will be getting that scholarship for a period of 4 years. Councilmember Hayden, refresh my memory, was it 4 or 5 technical scholarships that were given out?
It was four tech scholarships, 3 to the Cape School, 1 to the Fort Myers School, and then 1 Southwest Florida Service Academy
Yeah, so
scholarship.
that scholarship program last night basically gave away $50,000 in scholarships, and that is mainly because of first all the hard work and dedication of the Mayor's Scholarship Board of Directors, and also all of the sponsorships that provided the money to be able to give those scholarships out. So I just want to, and I think Councilmember Carr was there as well. So I wanted to thank the board and all of our sponsors for making that possible. And that's all I have. Mr. City Attorney, report.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, Mr. City Manager.
I have none.
Okay, moving on to item 13, time and place of future meetings. We have a committee of the whole scheduled for Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024, 9 a.m. here in council chambers. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.